Hi everyone, and welcome back to Sheep Farm. And this is Sheep Farm 27, and another in the series of Meet the Flockers. This one's about Nadhim Zahawi, who is the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for the nonsense arms spear deployment. I felt we couldn't miss him out because of all the overlapping research we uncovered on him. He is another dangerous individual, a corrupt man, a man intertwined with all the usual accompanying shenanigans, dodgy business deals, bloodlines, banksters, and intelligence services, etc, etc. I would like to point out that I have not included everything we uncovered in this presentation. We'd have been here all night if I did. What I wanted to show was an overall flavour of who he is and who he's surrounded by. I've been in business all my life. We all have to earn a living, and we're all in some way, shape or form corrupted by the system. Just using money means we all have blood on our hands. We've all been corrupted by lies, and our intention is not to hurt anybody. We wouldn't knowingly hurt someone or take advantage of people who are in a bad situation. Zahawi sums up all that is wrong with opportunistic capitalism. He is an harbour shark, happy to take what falls off the boat at others' expense. Whatever the price paid, the end game always outweighs the plan. If the pain is someone else's, that is. As we're seeing now with the arms spear casualty list. I'd like to thank Sam, Lorraine and Jane, who is a Sheep Farm subscriber, for their input. I'd also like to thank author Gary Jordan, who wrote the book C19 Illusion, A Cacophony of Lies, which is a must-read and available on all the usual book outlets. Also, David Teacher, who I don't know personally, is author of Road Agent, which was written in the 80s, which contained some excellent information. And finally, isgp-studies.com for the fantastic information on their website, and any other sources I used but didn't mention, I'd like to thank as well. As always, we will only ever use mainstream sources of information. To save time and file size for download purposes, I won't be using video or the usual information that always displays in the background of these presentations. This will be available on YouTube, hopefully, and Podomatic, who distribute through Google, Spotify, Amazon and many more. Sorry for the long intro, but it's going to be a long episode. I know these long episodes are difficult for some people who'd like snippets of information on Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat, etc. But I like epic amounts of information, and the longer the presentation the better for me. So sit back and buckle in for another white-knuckle ride into the information abyss with the MP Nadhim Zahawi. Just who is this flocker?
The Prime Minister of Greece has said that he would welcome people to come on holiday in Greece, but they will have to have some kind of vaccine passport to show they've been vaccinated first. Is that something that the British government is looking at, the idea of a vaccine passport specifically to allow people to come and go in the months ahead?
No, we're not. And there are several reasons why we're not doing that. One, vaccines are not mandated in this country, as Boris Johnson's quite rightly reminded Parliament. That's not how we do things in the UK. We do them by consent. We yet don't know what the impact of vaccines on transmission is, and it would be discriminatory. Of course, you have the evidence that you've been vaccinated held by your GP, and if other countries require you to show proof of that evidence, then that is obviously up to those countries. But we've vaccinated, or we've given the first dose to 11.5 million people, and we have no plan of introducing a vaccine passport.
We're also supporting businesses and organisations, helping them to manage the risk of transmission within their venues, including through the use of the NHS COVID pass for domestic use. I know that this has been of great interest to honourable members, and I wanted to use this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, today to reiterate this policy and offer the chance for the House to have its say. Mr. Speaker, this week, after a successful trial, we have rolled out the NHS COVID pass. This allows people safely and securely to demonstrate their COVID status, whether it's proof of vaccination status, test results or natural immunity. Anyone can access a pass via the NHS app, the NHS website, or by calling 119 and asking for a letter to demonstrate vaccine status.
All right, welcome to Sheep Farm 29 and another in the series of Meet the Flockers. And tonight we're going to be talking about Nadhim Zahawi, or Emperor Ming, as Chris calls him. And Zahawi is a dangerous individual indeed, a man cloaked with conflicts of interest, desperation, greed, and links to big business. A vulture willing to pick the bones of his fellow people just to get ahead. He's another pawn who's been protected, another Teflon kid, an untouchable, reprobate, and pathological liar. His past is also cloaked in intrigue and took quite a bit of digging to get to the real truth, and he has a very dubious personal story. He seems willing to lie and deceive to get what he wants, and he seems to be operating for unknown forces that are pushing him to the top in business and government, just like a lot of these cretins we look at. The thing with Zahawi is that he's willing to follow orders to the T just to get ahead, regardless of the consequences. He'll go on TV and lie, just like Wancock. And he even went on TV and told fellow liar Piers Moron his uncle had died of the nonsense, just like Wancock. He has no shame, because he knows that the nonsense test is, well, nonsense. Also, he has dubious business connections with offshore holdings. He's been accused of fraud, and he was part of the shamed MP and author of fiction Baron Geoffrey Archer's team. In fact, several prominent Tory MPs were incubated protégés of Archer's. We have MPs Kwasi Kwarteng, Sanjay Javid, Priti Patel. All of these are part of the cabinet now. Zahawi and a chap called Stephen Kukolski, now called Shakespeare, and there are also a couple more MPs that are also in Parliament. He is also a member of a secret group that is invite only. In fact, he has been chairman of this group for a few years, which is almost certainly run by the British intelligence community. So, how can this man be independent when he is a prominent businessman, is greedy, manipulative, competitive, corrupt, and willing to sell us down the river for his own progression up the ladder? He, his wife, and father have amassed a property empire valued at £100 million and climbing, most of which has been acquired while he's been in office. And now he's coming after the children and our freedom. What is more startling is that this episode is not really about Zahawi. He is the lead character, but it's about the groups that are secretly controlling this nonsense, playing out around the world with lots of other Zahawis right in front of our eyes. It is a financial takeover, a spiritual takeover, a conscious shift that will effectively make humans zombie robot slaves forever, while the world's population are asleep at the wheel. And we, that's the royal we who are tuned into this nonsense and can see the con, well, we are the only ones awake. We are the resistance, and I'm afraid we're the only ones left to fight, my friends. And with me tonight is our Chris, and you're not even drinking tonight, are you?
No, I'm having a night off. Yeah. Which shocked you. I think you said...
You've got water.
You said, I always have water and a glass of wine, but you said you're more worried that I'm not having a glass of wine.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone needs a few nights off, don't they?
Mm. It's not even January. So, what's your thoughts on Zahawi, Chris?
Do you know? I don't know anything about him really, to be honest with you, Dom.
No, I didn't either.
Other than I think he looks like Emperor Ming, and that's why I did that drawing of him making him look like Emperor Ming. But other than that, I don't really know. He's creepy looking, isn't it? But I don't know anything about him. I won't pretend that I do. Yeah,
well, I didn't either. And to be honest with you, like all of these people, these people aren't the ones we like researching. To be quite honest with you, MPs and people like that.
Mm.
These are the surface people. Mm. We're both a bit more esoteric than this type of research.
Well, I think we've almost done too many of them now, haven't we? They're getting a bit...
Well, it's not that we didn't too many, but I know what you mean.
I'm not saying it's not necessary. It's very necessary.
I know what you mean.
But
yeah.
It's getting... I mean, you do most of the work on these. You do all the work on this one. But it's almost getting a bit repetitive, isn't it? Oh, they've got all these horrible backgrounds. But it is necessary. Yeah. It's necessary to get it documented, isn't it? And to look
get it documented.
Because these people are on TV telling us what to do all the time.
Yeah. It's important to put it out there into the universe. I mean, we don't care about if 10 million people watch this. We're just doing it anyway because I enjoy the research and we enjoy having a chinwag about it.
Exactly. And like you said, it's important just to get it out into the ether and
Yes.
Then the words have been said. None of this has ever been said about this guy. I'm sure I haven't even read it yet, but I'm pretty sure no one knows any of this stuff. I'm sure you didn't before you read about it because they almost have these uninteresting characters as well. If you notice, all these ones that came out with this. Except for BJ, you didn't know any of them were, did you? They just came out of nowhere. And
Yeah.
you know, is that on purpose? Just that they just hidden, and then they just pop out to do this stuff.
We'll see, because I think these people are nurtured personally. I said at the beginning they're incubated and as protégés and to be brought out. But let's jump straight into it. Coming to do a bit of brief background, then you'll get a feel of what he's like.
Yeah.
So this Emperor Ming lookalike was actually born in Baghdad on 2nd of June 1967 to Kurdish parents. And we'll go through a bit of the Kurdish religion later on in this podcast. Or the Kurdish heritage, should I say. At the age of 9, he and his family fled to the UK from Iraq. That was in 1976. And it says they fled Saddam Hussein's reign, but he didn't come to power till 1979. So I think that's just already, I'm starting to smell it already. And despite being refugees, and according to Zahawi, penniless, and his father went bankrupt soon after arriving with a business deal, he managed to attend 2 private schools, Ibstock Place School and then King's College School, an independent school in Wimbledon, and a member of the Eton group of schools. And then he went on to attend the University College London, where he studied chemical engineering, receiving a BSc. Today, those schools charge nearly £8,000 per academic term, from age of 9 and up. And there was his sister as well, so it weren't just him. Does that sound like the typical refugee that left Iraq terrified, and he came over here and he was able to just jump straight in to go to private school? Does that sound like a refugee to you, Chris?
Not really, no.
I wonder how many of them refugees that are falling off boats coming across Channel just go straight into
private education.
Yeah. They don't, do they?
No.
So you can already start smelling
big fat rat.
the nonsense. And the he left with nothing, and the bankruptcy story and all that type of stuff. But we'll go into a bit more detail on that. At the age of 18, Zahawi says his father bankrupted the family when he invested everything he owned, everything, Chris, but it all on number 7 going around the roulette table. Yeah, even though they left Iraq with nothing, he managed to scrape together, and everything they owned. Yeah, they threw it all on
his peg knife in his tent.
Anyway, his dad invested it in an American startup venture, which failed spectacularly, resulting in the bank repossessing everything apart from his mother's Vauxhall Senator. That had already gone.
Have you made that Vauxhall Senator bit up?
That had gone.
Is that actually in there?
No, that was actually in there. Apart from his mum's, it was in a story. Vauxhall Senator, and forcing the family onto welfare. Now, his mother is a dentist. Right. So I'm not buying that one, to be quite fair. But despite this, the family somehow found money to send Zahawi and his sister to these 2 private schools and the prestigious University College London to study chemical engineering. Zahawi says his choice was to become a cab driver, or his choices were to become a cab driver or go to UCL. Again, something about this just does not ring true. Yeah, so I either become a cab driver or go to this expensive education university. Today, UCL has living expenses for undergrads of about 11 to 15k and tuition fees of 9,250 per year. Perhaps it was different in the 80s. I know there was some government funding in the 80s for it was slightly different to now. But I know it's never been cheap to attend one of the top 10 to 20 universities in the world, and UCL is one of those top 10 to 20 universities.
If his whole family's skint, you've still got to pay your way, haven't you? You've still got to, you've got to feed yourself. I mean, you could get grants and stuff back then, but it wouldn't have been easy, would it? And
the bankruptcy story does play out into something else later on, I think. But anyway, we'll move on.
But like you said, all the way through, his mother's a dentist. Dentists do all right.
Yeah, but even then, I think it plays into something else, and I'll talk about that. Zahawi said of UCL that he enjoyed his degree but never wanted to practice as a chemical engineer. Why not become a cab driver then? Instead, he wanted to ride horses and was a good jockey. His ambition was to be an international show jumper.
What?
So let's get this straight. They've got no money, but he's got money to have horses. Now, we were brought up on a farm, and I used to show jump.
And I did as well.
But my horses, right? My horses were nags.
Yeah, they were from Knacker's Yard, weren't they?
I used to.
His dad took great pride in saying,
we were basically saving their lives and tried turning them into show jumpers. And anyway, so and I know how much it costs to keep horses and what have you.
Yeah.
And if you're bankrupt, right, and we weren't rich by a long shot, but
maybe
my dad liked animals.
Maybe that's how him and
instead of going on holidays, So he's a refugee. He goes to prestigious private schools. He has horses, but he's penniless.
Yeah, what a massive load of contradictions.
Yeah. This story sounds like nonsense narrative building to me.
Yeah.
And after graduating from university, he set up a small business with a friend focused on property. So he's penniless, but now he can buy property.
You don't want to show jump anymore.
No.
How do you just? You got to go into property unless you got some cash behind you.
When I started in business, right, I was begging and borrowing, and that's what you have to do. Yeah. You don't just say, "I'm going to go buy some houses."
You don't set up a small business to deal with
buy property. No. But after the housing market crashed in the 80s, he switched his focus to starting up another business selling colour T-shirts and sold 3 million of them in 18 months. Again, it's just that one of them stories, isn't it? I sold 3 million T-shirts.
What, those T-shirts that change with your sweat and stuff? I remember them coming out.
I don't know what they were. Mm. One observation I have here is both property and selling millions of anything requires quite some considerable cash flow.
Mm.
More than a typical postgrad student probably has lying around. And he went from selling T-shirts. This is where it gets a bit. He went to work as a European marketing director for Smith & Brooks distributors of children's T-shirts. So he went from selling T-shirts and having a T-shirt business,
and selling 3 million of them, which must have turned him over. Well, at least £3 million.
Now he's left all that and he's going working for a company as their sales and marketing.
This one's hilarious.
Sounds like, yeah, it is. Well, the guy's a pathological liar. There seem to be a lot of them in the cabinet at the minute.
Yeah.
And in 1991, he met Jeffrey Archer, although it's not clear how they met, and worked as an aide in Archer's fraudulent Simple Truth campaign for impoverished Kurdish refugees. Now, that's a coincidence, isn't it? He happens to be a Kurd. In 1994, Zahawi helped get... I'll go into more detail on that. This is a brief outline. Archer helped Zahawi get elected to Wandsworth Council, and in 1998, Zahawi ran Archer's failed London mayoral campaign, where he met future business partner Stephen Kowalski, who's now called Shakespeare, who will come into again in more detail in this presentation. Coventry Life said in 2013, the metropolitan Kurd is apparently far removed from the blue-rimmed Tory stronghold of Stratford. He grew up on a Sussex farm, with a love of horses.
I thought he was penniless.
Before his family moved to London, and he attended several public and private schools.
Yeah.
One question keeps popping in my head is, where did the money come from to fund 2 kids through private schools,
Sussex
horses, farm, show jumping?
Yeah. Investment in his T-shirt business that made him, at least, if he sold them for £1 each, it made him 3 million. So
yeah, well minus costs and all that type of stuff. But
you know what I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
And then he ends up going back.
But if he sold 3 million T-shirts, let's just say that cost him, I don't know, 500 grand. Where did 500 grand come from originally?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, he would have needed at least to make 3 million T-shirts. Obviously, in time, he'd have needed at least X millions of pounds.
I don't think somebody's going to lay him on $500,000 for the T-shirts fresh out of UCL college deal.
Did he show Jeffrey Archer his T-shirt business? Is that how he ended up helping him run for mayor?
Yeah, probably made his T-shirts for him.
Archer for mayor.
Archer for mayor.
Fair enough.
That's how he got the job.
That explains everything.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Archer.
So I'm just going to vote Archer.
You're the lying twat.
Put your tick in Archer's box. Yeah, the lying twat. Right. Anyway, so Jeffrey Archer and the Simple Truth charity, right? This is where the plot thickens a little bit. Zahawi's early political career started in 1991. So this is after the T-shirt vote Archer business, yeah? And after he'd worked for that T-shirt company, making kids' T-shirts, yeah? Zahawi's early political career started in 1991 when Zahawi and fellow Kurd Brooks Saib who's, I think he's either an interior designer or an artist, is that guy, and he's married to his sister, is Zahawi, were aides to Jeffrey Archer during Archer's controversial Simple Truth campaign to help Kurdish victims of the Gulf War. Zahawi and Saib were nicknamed Lemon Kurd and Bean Kurd by Archer. No racism there. In 1994, Archer helped campaign for Zahawi for a seat for Wandsworth Council, as I said. So he's right in the middle of all this. This is 1994, so he's quite young here, in his mid-20s, and you've got somebody like Jeffrey Archer, who's an embedded Tory, pushing him in this campaign. Jeffrey Archer, to me, is the epitome of a British MP. Corrupt, liar, a lord, and worth apparently 200 million. He was jailed for libel, if you remember, after a newspaper accused him of being with a prostitute in 1987, and he lied, as did his friend Ted Francis, who later came out and said that Archer had asked him to provide a false alibi for the night Archer was alleged to have been with prostitute Monica Coghlan. Angela Pepiat, Archer's former PA, also claimed Archer had fabricated an alibi in the 1987 trial. Pepiat had kept a diary of Archer's movements, which contradicted evidence given in the 1987 trial. Andrina Coloquin, Archer's former mistress, so he's got a mistress on side as well, confirmed that they had been having an affair in the 1980s, contradicting the claim that he and Mary Archer had been happily married at the time of the trial. Coincidentally, the perjury trial began on the 30th of May 2001, just a month after Monica Coghlan, the alleged prostitute, died in a road traffic collision.
More coincidences.
You can't make this stuff up, can you?
No.
Yeah, you can't make this poor woman caught in the middle of a lie, and they've wiped her out. Wiped her out. These are the type of people mentoring these politicians now in power. Javid, Patel, Querting, and now this lunatic. Patel, going to her, not very pretty Patel, worked for global PR firm Weber Shandwick. While there, she worked with British American Tobacco, which is BAT on the London stock market, the huge cigarette firm selling the virtues of smoking. This is the type of people. Weber Shandwick, the parent company, is owned by Interrepublic Group, and it's on the New York Stock Exchange with a 10 billion revenue and a market cap of 14.6 billion. And the old normal investment companies, the Vanguard Group and BlackRock, they all own that, and many others. And Javid, who is a good friend of Zahawi's, well, Javid joined Chase Manhattan Bank in New York City immediately after graduation, working mostly in South America. Age 25, he became vice president of Chase Manhattan Bank. Chase Manhattan is a Rockefeller bank, and during the early years of World War II, the German government sold a special kind of Reichsmark, just to give you an idea what the Chase Bank is, known as the Ruckwanderer marks, to American citizens of German descent. Chase National Bank, along with other businesses, were involved in these transactions. Through Chase, this allowed the Nazi sympathisers to purchase marks with dollars at a discounted rate. So they were helping to fund the Nazis while the war was going on and their own people were fighting them. The bank is also closely associated with and has financed the oil industry. Well, it would do because the Rockefellers owned Standard Oil, etc.
He was made vice president at 25 years old of Chase Manhattan Bank.
Well, you've got to understand that Americans like throwing vice presidencies. He's probably vice president of an area, right, not of the whole bank. Yeah. The bank is obviously closely associated, as I said, with the oil industry. Because obviously the Rockefellers own Exxon Mobil and Standard Oil, etc. Chase, JP Chase, is now worth $468.24 billion. And obviously Vanguard Group and BlackRock Fund own quite a big chunk of that as well.
Exxon Mobil with a classic double cross in it.
Double cross, yeah. Javid was an investment banker where he rose to become board member of Deutsche Bank International for 18 years. He left Deutsche Bank in 2009 to pursue a career in politics. His earnings at Deutsche Bank would have been roughly $3 million a year at the time he left. And the Evening Standard once estimated his career change would have required him to take a 98% pay cut. Does this make sense to you?
think it's Deutsche Bank fatty, not Deutsche Bank.
Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Bank. No, I think that. But why would he? He wouldn't take a £2.8 million pay cut, would he?
Of course he would.
Or whatever it is.
He's a lovely person.
You know, a year. Kwasi Kwarteng MP, Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. That's laughable. Kwarteng went to Eton College, Trinity College, Cambridge, and Harvard University on a Kennedy Scholarship. He has considered veganism to combat climate change. That'll work.
We were on about this. You've been totally hijacked, the old vegan thing.
Eat carrots, lower CO2. Before coming a member of Parliament, Kwarteng also worked as a columnist for the Daily Telegraph and as a financial analyst for JP Morgan Chase Manhattan Bank and other investment banks. In May 2021, Kwarteng opened a new electric car battery plant in Oxfordshire called Johnson Matthey. They are a British multinational specialty chemicals and sustainable technologies company, headquarters in London. It is listed on the London Stock Exchange and is in the FTSE 100 index. They have revenues of 14.5 billion and they're valued at a cool 5.8 billion. The biggest investors are BlackRock, who own 11% of the shares. Like Zahawi, Kwarteng is also a member of the invite-only group, Le Circle. We're going to go into a lot of detail on Le Circle because, to me, that was probably one of the finds out of all of this thing. And like Manchurian sleeper cells, these people are trained, mentored by people like Archer, Masonic archers. And as I said, like the Manchurian sleeper cells, they're ready to be engaged when the time is right. What future have they been promised to carry this work out? Well, you can see they're just three people, Chris. You know, they're not all these people. They're three people who are linked to Archer.
I think all these characters, like BJ and all of them, like we've said before, they're just getting lined up. They're moving all the little pieces into place, weren't they? Was it already? I think it was probably already for this moment in time, right now.
So do I.
Years ago.
I mean, that's what I don't think people can get their head around. That I mean, this started with their training going back into the 90s. But how much of a coincidence is it that Archer was training several, and I'm saying several, of and 3 or 4 of them are prominent cabinet members right now, that Archer trained them all, or they were there as his underlings at the same time.
Yeah. Not by chance, is it? Yeah.
That isn't by chance. It can't be by chance.
Even when he went to prison, Archer, he brought a best-selling book out while he was in prison, didn't he? Because obviously soon after he came out.
Yeah, he did. The Simple Truth charity, which Archer set up with Zahawi and his mate for oppressed Kurds. But there is more to this story, much more, in fact, that involves the different Kurdish groups, oil and weapons. But here's the official story, which is quite laughable. When Saddam Hussein suppressed Kurdish uprisings in 1991, Archer, with the Red Cross, we won't get into Red Cross, set up the charity Simple Truth, which is great coming from a liar.
How can you the irony of it?
he just got out from lying, out of prison for perjury, and now he's got anyway, fundraising on behalf of the Kurds. In May 1991, Archer organised a charity pop concert starring Rod Stewart. Hope he was wearing them leopard skin. What would he wear? Leopard skin bathing shorts. Paul Simon, Sting, and Gloria Estefan, who all performed for free. Archer claimed that his charity had raised £57 million, though it was later revealed that only £3 million came from the Simple Truth concert, or the Simple Line Truth concert and appeal. The rest came from the British government and other governments around the world. Archer was made a life peer on the 27th of July 1992 as Baron Archer of Weston-super-Mare of Mark in the county of Somerset. Prime Minister John Major recommended him largely because of Archer's role in aid of the Kurds.
Just more internal backpatting, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Archer and Major have been friends for several years. There is also a possible link to Archer and intelligence agencies in the book Jeffrey Archer, The Kurds, The Simple Truth, which I've not read, but I read snippets of it. And as we'll see in this next part here about Archer, in 2004, the government of Equatorial Guinea alleged that Archer was one of the financiers of a failed 2004 coup d'etat attempt against it, citing bank details and telephone records as evidence. In 2009, Archer said, "I'm completely relaxed about it. Mr. Mann, Simon Mann, the English mercenary leader of the coup, has made clear that it was nothing to do with me." In 2011, Mann, imprisoned in Equatorial Guinea for his role in leading the failed 2004 coup d'etat, but released on humanitarian grounds later, told the Daily Telegraph that his forthcoming book, Cry Havoc, would reveal the financial involvement of a controversial and internationally famous member of the British House of Lords in the plot, backed up by banking records. He claimed documents from bank accounts in Guernsey of two companies Mann used as vehicles for organising the coup showed a J.H. Archer paying £135,000 into one of the firms and Geoffrey Howard Archer, Baron Archer of Weston-super-Mare. A simple truth.
I think I know you like putting yourself into research, Don, but I'd stop at reading one of Geoffrey Archer's books if I were you.
I can't read that nonsense, man. But what you got to think is Zahawi was involved all the way through that nonsense. Yeah, these people are friends. Yeah. He's his protege.
It made his bones, didn't it?
Not just Zahawi, Zahawi, Patel, Javid, all these Kwerteng, and all these other people. Nearly swore then, who were with him.
I think so Patel's quite frightening. I think you know when she started doing some accused of bullying, and you think, and she's actually saying she wasn't a bully, and you're like, I can tell you are a bully straight away just looking at your face. I'm sorry, you are.
Well, she's got mad dog bollock eyes, hasn't she?
Yes.
Yeah, she's got them eyes that stare through you.
She looks scarier than any of them, to be honest.
Their eyes wobble. Yeah,
she looks more stern and frightening than any of them. Well, none of them look frightening at all, except her. To be fair.
Yeah, she does look. Well, a lot of them look like those people that you see on films where they're in the private members club going, "So what's happened to Jimmy? Oh, Jimmy hasn't been doing right well. All right, sort Jimmy out, will you?" Jimmy's floating down river because they do it with a smile, don't they? Yeah. She doesn't do it with a smile.
No.
But her hero's Margaret Thatcher.
Well, enough said.
Exactly.
How can that zombie be?
How can your hero be that? But yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, Zahawi was elected as a Conservative councillor in Putney in the London Borough of Wandsworth, serving 3 terms, 1994 to 2006, and stood as a parliamentary candidate in Erith and Thamesmead in 1997, coming second to Labour. In 2010, Zahawi was selected by the local Conservative Association for Stratford-on-Avon as a prospective parliamentary candidate in the 2010 general election, and he was elected. He was subsequently re-elected in 2015, 2017 and 2019. In 2013, he became a member of the Number 10 Policy Unit. That sounds ominous, that name, doesn't it? Later in October, Zahawi and fellow member of the Business and Innovation Skills Committee interviewed Lazard, the government's independent advisor, on the sale of the Royal Mail. Shares rose quickly to £5 following flotation at £3.30, and the Financial Times claimed that 2 investment banks had warned that it was underpriced. Now, isn't that a surprise? So they sold it off cheap, the crown jewels, to... It's strange, but I bet those investment banks still bought them, even though they'd warned they were too low. The Iraqi-born British politician who had served as Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Business and Industry since 2019 and Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for the Nonsense Arms Spear deployment since 2020. He's also a member of the Conservative Party and an MP for Stratford-on-Avon since 2010. Zahawi is Vice Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group, the APPG, on the Kurdistan region in Iraq. Why do we need one of them? Which received secretarial support from Gulf Keystone Petroleum International, an oil company of which Zahawi was Chief Strategy Officer. Now that's a shock, isn't it? Concerns have been raised about how MPs' independence might be compromised by such links between the APPGs and private companies, and specifically about Zahawi's connections with the oil industry and the effect it has on his role as an MP. Zahawi has been co-chair or vice-chair of this APPG since it was established in 2008-2009, alongside other MPs, including Meg Munn and Jason McCartney, and was, until January 2018, Chief Strategy Officer for Gulf Keystone Petroleum. So he's working, right, in an all-party parliamentary group on Kurdistan. There's a company in Kurdistan called the Gulf Keystone Petroleum, and he also works for that, Chris. Yeah. He's independent. So just do a bit on Gulf Keystone. Gulf Keystone Petroleum Limited is an independent oil company and gas exploration and production company operating in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, and also the operator of the Sheikhan oil field. It was listed on the main market of the London Stock Exchange on the 8th of September 2004. It has 600 employees. The company was founded by the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and US private equity firms, and has been registered in Bermuda since 2001, with branch offices in So 2001, this was before the invasion of Iraq. Yeah?
Right.
Bear that in mind.
Right.
Yeah? Slicing the cake. It's got offices in Erbil, Kurdistan, London, UK. Through its subsidiary, Gulf Keystone Petroleum International, the company owns production sharing contracts for one exploration block in Iraqi Kurdistan. I think we can safely say that this is a tax-free offshore company in a British protectorate of Bermuda. The Sheikhan is an oil field in northern Iraq in which Gulf Keystone Petroleum currently holds 75% of production, sharing the agreement with the Kurdish regional government. Nowhere does this say it's owned by the Kurdish people. Yeah? It's one family that runs Kurdistan. It is noticeably one of the largest giant super oil fields discovered in the last 50 years. The oil field has a production capacity of 40,000 barrels a day. The company's worth £340 million and is owned by all the usual investment houses, BlackRock and Vanguard. And also, Vanguard owned UBS, which is an investor, or part of UBS. So it's intertwined in so many different ways. So during the mass arms spearing and the lead up to it, Zahawi was working for the very investment companies that owned the stock in all of the companies involved in the current nonsense. While selling his fellow Kurds down the river and pretending he's doing them help via various spurious charities and policies.
Do you think he was used from the beginning because he was Iraqi then?
Yeah, it was used from the beginning. And this is where it comes back to that company's dad set up. If you think about, and I'll come into it probably a bit later on, I might as well mention it here. You've got people who are desperate to get some of the. They were from a prominent family in Iraq. Get some of the former life back, so somebody approaches his dad with a business objective, and his dad sinks his money in, loses all his money. Right? He's now fair game for security forces to say, look, we can line your pockets back, but we want you to do X, Y, Z. Your kids will go through school, they'll do blah blah blah, and you'll make a lot of money out of this. But we'll get you back in Kurdistan. Yeah, to earn and fill your pockets and get your own back on the regime. So back on track. After retirement of the previous Conservative John Maple, Zahawi was elected for Stratford-upon-Avon in the 2010 election. Zahawi joined Theresa May's government as Minister for Children and Families in January 2018. In July 2019, he was made Minister for the Industry at the Department for Business and Energy and Industrial Strategy under Bobo. And in November 2020, he was obviously the jib-jab Lord Minister. Zahawi was co-founder of international internet-based market research firm YouGov, of which he was chief executive until February 2010. During the time he was on the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, he was also chairman from 2015 to 2018 of the secretive transatlantic group Le Circle, but did not declare his membership or his chairmanship of this group. And this group is dubious, to say the least. In 2019, a member of his staff was listed as an administrator of Le Cercle in the Parliamentary Register of Interests. Le Cercle is an interesting group, which we'll go into deeper later. In February 2021, Zahawi said that there were no plans to introduce arms spear passports to travel abroad, describing them as discriminatory. He said people could talk to their doctor if they needed written evidence to travel. In 2012 and 2013, Zahawi claimed for a total of £170,234 in expenses, ranking him the 130th highest out of 650 MPs for expenses. In fact, he claimed that I think he was the third highest pay. I think it was nearly 600 grand a year.
Right.
He explained in his local newspaper, Stratford Herald, that the vast bulk of his expenses were staffing costs.
What? That don't make sense. How does that make
sense? In November
sense?
2013. No. Well, you can just say it's staffing costs, so it is. Yeah. In 2013, Zahawi apologised unreservedly after the Sunday Mirror reported that he had claimed £5,800 expenses for electricity for his riding school stables and a yards manager's mobile home.
You see, he should be instantly sacked, instantly out of the government, shouldn't he? For that,
he should.
No, any of us would
not
go to
just
prison for
instantly
that.
sacked.
Put in prison.
Yeah, they're locking people up for having a coffee on a park bench with a friend. They're dragging them away. Yeah, and this twat is, and I know it's £5,800.
Yeah, but it's tax evasion. They come down on you harder for tax evasion than they do for being a bloody whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? For manslaughter.
Zahawi said the mistake arose because he received a single bill covering both a meter in the stables and one in the house. He would repay the money, though the actual charge was £4,000. An article in The Independent also drew attention to the large number of legitimate but trivial items on Zahawi's expenses. Zahawi's various roles resulted in him reportedly being the second highest earning MP in the UK as of 2017. His declarations in the registers of members' interests included the following employment and earnings: non-executive director at recruitment company S3, monthly salary £3,333, interesting number, and chief strategy officer of Gulf Keystone Limited, monthly salary of £20,125. He's also a 50% shareholder of Zahawi and Zahawi Limited and holds shares in S3 and YouGov. In registers of members' interests in 2015, he also declared shares in Genil Energy plc, an Anglo-Turkish exploration and production company within the oil and gas industry. There's a surprise. He declared property interests that are residential property and 31 acres of land in Warwickshire with stables run as a livery yard by Zahawi and Zahawi Limited. What about that Vauxhall Senator? Residential buy-to-let property in London he's got, divided into 3 flats, a house in London, in Putney, rented out from the 30th of June 2015, and a commercial property in Surrey, purchased on the 29th of September 2015 and rented out through Zahawi and Zahawi Limited. It is no wonder then that Zahawi's votes against, he actually voted against in 2016 the Labour Party amendment in Parliament that would have required private landlords to make their homes fit for human habitation. And he voted against it.
I mean, you're voting against fit for human habitation.
That's like something out of Victorian Britain, isn't it?
Yeah. And also, how were he even claiming for his electricity in his house anyway?
He probably can claim, say it's his office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still dubious, even that's dubious, isn't it?
Right, so most of these people are just ripping the British public off, so they don't care because they're all part of the same club. According to Parliament's Register of Interests, Zahawi was one of 72 Conservative MPs who voted against this amendment, but who derived income from renting out property.
Rented out shithole slums, bro. Dickensian, isn't it?
I mean, we laugh, but it is Dickensian, yeah. The Conservative government responded to the amendment that they believe homes should be fit for human habitation, but did not want to pass the new law that would explicitly require it.
What?
Meanwhile, please put your face nappy on. Zahawi and Zahawi Limited is a business consultancy company registered with Companies House as other businesses and support service activities, with its registered address at the same Warwickshire stables. Clients of Zahawi include the research and consulting firm YouGov plc, of which he's a founder of that company, and continues to be registered as a shareholder. The Guardian reported early in 2017 that Zahawi had spent $25 million buying property around London for both personal and commercial use. Zahawi said in response that my first priority before anything else is my constituency work, and I would never, or have never, let anything get in the way of this. In November 2013, it was reported by the Birmingham Mail that in 2011, 1 year after becoming an MP, Zahawi used as a mortgage lender Beckford Investments Limited, based in the low-tax British Overseas Territory of Gibraltar, to finance the purchase of his constituency home, Oakland Riding Stables estate, worth at the time £875,000. Berkshire Investments Limited is managed by T&T Management Services Limited, which advertises its wealth management service as setting up and administering trusts to help the wealthy minimise or avoid property taxes. Zahawi responded to the newspaper story saying, I did pay stamp duty on my property in Tyso, and I've always paid stamp duty on my property purchases. He said, to suggest that in any way I'm using offshore to reduce my tax burden is entirely incorrect.
That's all right then. Forget about it.
Forget about it now. There's nothing to see.
Yeah.
So why would he... Do you know what? Part of me says, I don't mind him going and putting his money overseas, you know, and saving tax. Why patent the system? But he's an MP.
Yeah.
He can't do that.
You won't begrudge it.
He is the system.
Yeah.
He is the system. He cannot do that. So a couple of these companies that he actually worked for, S3. S3 PLC is an international firm specialising in staffing organisation, founded in the United Kingdom and headquartered in London. It is listed on the London stock market, like a lot of these are, and is a constituent of the FTSE small cap index. As I said, Zahawi gets £3,333 a month from this company. It has revenues of over £1.2 billion a year and a market cap of 600 to 700 million of value. On the face of it, so what? As a recruitment company, it got to do with anything? Well, nothing until you see what they recruit. A lot of top Tory MPs are wanting to privatise the NHS, and Zahawi is one of them. A blog called the pilersblog.com reported, and I quote word for word, a section of the blog. In 2011, there was a debate in the House of Commons about a piece of legislation called the Health and Social Care Act. It was controversial, as the bill included reforms that would mean private companies coming into healthcare and being able to make a profit from the NHS. Many MPs had doubts, but during the debate, Nadhim Zahawi made a passionate speech in support of the bill and described it as a brilliant piece of legislation. From 2013, thanks to the passing of the bill, several companies started to get contracts for various services within the NHS. I wonder where this is going. One of these was a recruitment company by the name of S3. Ain't that a coincidence? In 2014, the Mirror reported that over a 10-month period, S3 received contracts worth £2.6 million from the NHS. To sum up what occurred during this phase of the privatisation, Tory MPs supported a bill which would bring private companies into the NHS. The bill passed. Companies such as S3 started to make a profit from the NHS. But what's so curious about Zahawi's connection to all this? Well, Nadhim Zahawi just happens to be a director of S3, and according to the Daily Mirror, as I said, earns $3,000 a month for that job and has shares in that company.
And then you wonder where it could go now, Dom, with
yes,
NHS people leaving or because of the Amsterdam.
Yeah. And then he's also part of Geneel Energy. Now, Geneel Energy operates in the Kurdistan area. Surprise, surprise. We don't need Cilla Black for that one. Not anywhere else but Kurdistan. It has a market cap of 386 million, and Zahawi owns shares in this company too. I found this interesting, very interesting. Geneel Energy was created in 2011, so it's quite a new company. because of the reverse acquisition of Turkish Genel Energy by a Tony Haywood-led investment company called Vela PLC. Vela PLC was set up by Tony Haywood, banker Julian Metherall, and financier Nat Rothschild, the heir apparent to the title of Baron Rothschild, held by his father. Rothschild is also a naturalised Montenegro citizen. These are the people he works for, or the companies he has been given shares in by these characters, while working in governmental positions that is a total conflict of interest on steroids. Thoughts, Chris?
Yeah. Well, like I was just trying to say then, Dom, is this leading to something now? Because this is 2011 or whatever you were talking about, with the NHS thing and all these private companies. Is this leading to the final sweep when they will privatise the NHS, do you think?
Well, I think they're doing it in parts, aren't they?
Yeah, I didn't even know any of this existed, but yeah.
Well, if you think about it, right, if you say, right, them mop buckets they're all right, we'll privatise that. So we'll pass a bill to privatise the
Cleaning.
Purchase of mop buckets for and cleaning.
Yeah.
It's not about health, really, is it?
No.
But if that covers health as well, all of a sudden that's slightly different, isn't it?
It's just creeping in, isn't it? Slowly.
Creeping in. Who paints these buildings? All right, blah, blah, blah. All right. Do we actually have to own the building, or do we sell the buildings off and rent them back? Is that cheaper? Then we don't have to maintain them all. All of a sudden, then, all the bits
and I was thinking more of the nurses, where nurses now, if they don't get the AMSB, they could lose a job. But suddenly a private company turns up and brings all their own nurses in and whatever.
Well, I think what you might find is that a lot of the nurses now, I know because I know a few of the nurses that work for us, a lot of them also work for agencies, like you in your chef world. You've got your name down in agencies, and the agencies can treat you differently to what
that's what
an employer can.
Yeah. Which is just another slow way of privatising it, isn't it?
Yes.
So you're no longer employed by the NHS; you're just employed by agencies.
Yes. Yeah. And also like that last company there, that Genel, and there were loads of companies. I could have gone into detail on them companies, really deep detail. But these companies owned by the Rothschilds, they're oil companies, they're owned by big banks. All these same characters keep popping up behind these politicians. It's not just Zahawi. They were all behind Hancock. They're all behind Whitty. They're all behind all these characters, Boris Johnson, all of them. And you can start seeing the push, and they're probably behind the French, behind the Canadian, the Americans, all of them. Following President Trump's executive order a few years ago that banned travellers from Middle Eastern states, Zahawi reported that, despite being a British citizen, he was unable to enter the United States as he was born in Baghdad. The ban also affected his wife. According to a media report, this prevented Zahawi from visiting his children attending college in the US. Zahawi spoke out against the policy and urged that the UK should not turn a blind eye to it. He also urged that the travel ban, and Prime Minister Theresa May's failure to condemn it only fueled support for ISIS in Iraq and other countries. How does that work? You can't go on holiday to America. Oh, that benefits ISIS. I don't see the link there, do you?
No.
A bit like that story that ran today, that climate change helped the Taliban.
When they went on about
Obviously.
it, you're just like, what the hell are they on about?
Who's conjured that one up?
Genius.
Anyway, this didn't stop him, though. In July 2021, when he announced plans to introduce domestic nonsense jib-jab passports from September as a condition of entry to nightclubs and some other venues with large crowds. So he can't go to America, but you can't go into a concert.
He's complaining he can't go to America, but he's stopping everyone from going anywhere without a passport.
He's a lying twat.
Without your papers, please.
Yeah, can I have your papers?
Yeah, that is literally where it's going. You never thought you'd see that, did you?
Well, I don't think we knew this was getting bad, but we didn't realise. Anyway, we're not talking about that tonight. We'll talk about that in another one. But YouGov is an interesting. I'm going to go into quite a bit of detail about YouGov because it's an interesting company. YouGov is a British international internet-based market research and data analytics firm headquartered in the UK with operations in Europe, North America, the Middle East, and Asia Pacific. YouGov was founded in the UK in May 2000 by Stephen Shakespeare, and future Conservative MP Nadhim Zahawi. Now, Shakespeare was known as Kowalski, if you remember me saying at the beginning, and he was also one of Baron Archer's protégés. In fact, in 2001, they engaged BBC political analyst Peter Kellner to become chairman, and then from 2007 to 2016, he was president. And we'll come on to Kellner because he's got an interesting story as well. In April 2005, YouGov became a public listed company in the alternative investment market, or the AIM market, on the London Stock Exchange. Major shareholders of the company are BlackRock and Standard Life. BlackRock and Vanguard also own Standard Life as well. So you can see they're sort of intertwined with these investment companies. One owns the other, one owns part of the other, yada, yada. YouGov has revenues of 136 million and is valued at 1.38 billion. YouGov specialises in market research and opinion polling through online methods. The company's methodology involves obtaining responses from an invited group of internet users and then weighting these responses in line with demographic information. It draws these demographically representative samples from a panel of over 12 million people worldwide. Now, what could that be used for? Should we wear masks? Oh, yes. There we go.
So what they watch social media and stuff to get their numbers? Is that kind of what he's saying?
Well, they actually have people who apply to be part of this survey. Yeah, but it's all online, as opposed to walking around with checkboards or ringing you up. It's online.
I would hazard a guess.
And they'll ask you a set of questions on a certain subject, and you'll answer it, and that's where they'll get the data from.
You wouldn't be surprised if people just clicked on someone and didn't even know they'd signed up for it, would you? Would you be surprised?
No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And they're being used during this nonsense as well, YouGov, massively. Again, it looks like Zahawi didn't have a big stake in this. He's a founder. Now, if you're a founder, surely should have a decent stake in it. It doesn't look like he's got a massive stake in this. He sounds like he's been given something as a thank you for doing something. But anyway, as YouGov's online methods use a no field force, so they've got nobody out on the streets with checkboards, its costs are lower than the face-to-face or telephone methods. Founder Stephen Shakespeare owns 7.4% of the company, giving him a value of around 190 million in that business. The strange thing is, Zahawi does not own anywhere near this amount. Zahawi, who was chief executive until 2010, in fact, they were joint chief executives, when YouGov was set up in 2000, one of its biggest shareholders was Zahawi's Balshaw Investments, based in tax haven Gibraltar. Balshaw received around £120,000 in dividends from YouGov in 2017. Now, who owns Balshaw Investments, I wonder? Backed by huge investment firms like BlackRock, in 2006, just 6 years after being founded, they went on a massive acquisition spree, buying up international companies, spending around 70 million plus. There was 1.2 million for Dubai-based research firm Siraj. In 2007, they added Palo Alto, California-based US research firm Polymetrics for approximately 17 million, Scandinavian firm Zapira for $8 million, and interestingly, German firm Psychonomics for $20 million. Psychonomics describes an approach to psychology that aims at discovering the laws that govern the workings of the mind.
What the hell does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. The field is directly related to experimental psychology. The word is used most prominently by the Psychonomic Society, a society of experimental psychologists in the United States and around the world. So they bought a company that does that electronically.
Why would they buy a £20 million psychology company?
To roll it out into a global part of their UK. The YouGov slogan is, what the world thinks.
I mean, that can sound positive or negative.
Yeah. Or what the world is made to think. In business, this is called consolidating the market, buying and plugging in established companies. But what I don't understand is that the two founders had no experience in online businesses, because both of them were MPs or worked in that side of it, or in this type of company, or in buy and build strategies or floating companies. They didn't have any experience in this. And I've gone and tried raising funding, and we've raised funding for certain companies, and I know that they want people on board That you rock up and say, I've got this idea for this company. I want to spend 70 million buying companies, yada, 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 and float it on the stock market. They just laugh at you if you've got no experience. Honestly. They'd say, come back and bring a company. Yet this one, within a few years, is floating and buying hundreds of millions of pounds worth of businesses. So where did the initial money come to set it up? That's what I want to know. And 5 short years after, it floated on the AIM. Now, that's not unusual, but why would massive investment houses like BlackRock and Standard Life, bear in mind, Zahawi had also worked for 2 or 3 companies that were owned by BlackRock and Vanguard and Standard Life and all these other companies. And they now invested money in this, which basically meant that they could buy £100 million of the companies. YouGov are also partners of the World Economic Forum, surprisingly. I mean, who'd have guessed that? So they're doing data research for the World Economic Forum and Slughead Schwab. For all you Man U fans out there as well, Manchester United are part of World Economic Forum.
Oh, yeah. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, they're just one of partners. They fund them.
Right.
They give money to World Economic Forum.
Right.
So anybody, and this is one of the reasons why I don't watch sport, because all these sports companies are all part of this. So anybody who goes and watches Premiership and whatever, it's all hijacked. It's all controlled. So YouGov, all to control and convince people that other people are thinking a certain way. And YouGov are used by the government and have been during the current propaganda campaign. Some side notes, just to make the waters a little murkier, YouGov have partnered with no other than Imperial College London, which is at the centre of this mass mental manipulation. This is what their release on the Imperial College website says. We're tracking how people across the world are responding to the nonsense pandemic. Our global survey, launched in partnership with YouGov the first week of April, is collecting fortnightly data from 29 countries, 29, interesting number, to explore the public's attitudes and health behaviours as the situation evolves. Through this survey, we're monitoring how compliant individuals are with COVID-19 safety measures, such as self-isolation and avoiding unnecessary travel. Well, Zahawi couldn't go to America, so that's avoiding unnecessary travel. We're also looking into a range of other relevant behaviours and measures, from hygiene to quality of life. I like where they say that.
You see as well, that says data collection.
So the Minister for Vaccine Deployment and shareholder of YouGov is working for a company funded by the Wellcome Trust, the Gates Foundation, GSK, BlackRock, Vanguard, and many, many more. They have also several SAGE members from ICL pushing the nonsense narrative. I could go on, but I won't on this part. What were you going to say? Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that bit there sounds like my suspicion earlier on that it's a data collection company.
Oh, it's a data collection company.
No, but
that's what it does.
What I mean is they said that they get 12 million people and questionnaire them. That sounds like they're just actually taking people's data and the things that they do.
Scraping data.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they put something out there. Like I've said this, I thought this from the beginning, Don, where they put something out there and they see the reaction on social media. And then that's the data that they're gathering.
Yeah. Should we wear masks?
Yeah, exactly. Like you said earlier, he says, I don't think we should have vaccine passports. And you'll immediately get a load of responses at that, won't you? But once vaccine passport's out there, it's on its way. There's no two ways about it.
The slogan is, what the world thinks. So that doesn't say we're not going to make them think it. Yeah. So that's what that could mean. So they could also be part of. It could be on the surface that people apply online and become a member of YouGov and be part of all this. But then what they could be doing as well by buying all these companies is forming what people are thinking. So when you see Jeremy Vine talking nonsense, he's part of that trick.
Or just we need to push a bit more in this area, or push a bit more in that.
Exactly. As we saw with Susan Mickey and all them other clowns.
A bit more
in Sage. Yeah. I think the clue's in the name. I mean, YouGov. How would they get away with calling a name if you're not a government department? How's it called YouGov? Yeah. It's not u.gov, it's YouGov. Yeah?
Yeah, it sounds totally government run, doesn't it?
They actually work for the government as well. So not just private companies, but they work for the government. So you won't get away with that. You know, if we set one up, call it whatever, Finance Gov, you'd probably get a visit. They are, in my opinion, grabbing data, and they're all over this, what's going on now. And it probably gets away with it because, to me, it looks like an intelligence setup, which we'll come on to with some of the people that are involved, as we shall see in a moment, when we have a look at a few of the characters involved in starting up this company, with the apparent founder and shareholder, Stephen Shakespeare, or to give him his proper name, Stephen Kukowski, which there's a strange link with one of, it looks like Zahawi's family members later on with this guy as well. But Stephen Kukowski, or Stephen Shakespeare, born in 1957, is the German-British co-founder and CEO of YouGov. In 2012, Shakespeare was appointed as chairman of the Data Strategy Board, the advisory body that was set up by the government to maximise value of data for users across the UK. Yeah, of course it will. In October 2012, the Department for Business, Innovation and Skills at the Cabinet Office ministers announced that he would lead an independent, I like these independent reviews, don't you, Chris? An independent review of the public sector information. And it's called the Shakespeare Review. What a nice name.
Made up review.
Made up review. And it's called the Shakespeare Review. More.
But you look at these facts, these are all these data collection things set up in 2012. What shenanigans is going on now wouldn't be able to happen without all this data collection, would it?
It'd be the struggle, wouldn't it?
They would, because it's literally that is what's running this whole shenanigans right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's collected data. We need to react in this way. We need to do this way. I need to pull back here.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, what's
100%.
going on now is weird because you're not hearing any of it mentioned. So I'm sure
I don't have to mention it.
You've got data collection and you've got psychologists involved, like we said with what's her name. So you can see what's going on, can't you? It's just manipulation.
Yeah.
They've got all the tools to manipulate the whole mass, everybody.
This Shakespeare review was published in 2013, and he's been a member of the government's Public Sector Transparency Board. The Public Sector Transparency Board was established by Prime Minister David Astor Cameron in June 2010 to drive forward the UK government's transparency agenda. You just know the line by saying that, don't you?
Why would you even have to set up a public transparency sector? Do you know what I mean?
Because
you want to be lying, should you? So you should have
to set up that's the truth there. Yeah. So you believe that truth. Yeah. It's not. That's it in a nice little package for you. Yeah. You know,
in 2010 as well, they've set up not only psychologist data collection, a transparency board to make sure everyone knows what was telling the truth. Yeah. I wonder if that's when they dreamt up the fact checkers at the same time.
Probably. In November 2015, its functions, the transparency agenda, were taken over by the Data Steering Group. Shakespeare is also a trustee of the National Portrait Gallery in London. And you find that a lot, don't you? The building's lovely. But again, I started looking into that and I thought, don't go down that rabbit hole because it's just another rabbit hole. The gallery houses portraits of historically important and famous British people selected on the basis of their significance of the sitter, not that of the artist. The collection includes photographs and caricatures, as well as paintings, drawings, and sculptures. One of its best-known images is the Chandos portrait, the famous portrait of William Shakespeare. And Mr. Shakespeare is a trustee.
There's also an Attenborough one in there as well, if I remember rightly.
Oh, nice. Although there is some uncertainty about whether the painting actually is of the playwright, or if he ever existed, that is. The National Gallery Company Limited, company number 022800277, has no shareholders. Strange. So it's a limited company with no shareholders. The National Gallery Company Limited, or NGC, is a commercial organisation which contributes financially to the National Gallery. It is owned and operated by the National Gallery Trust, a charitable body which generates and manages additional charitable contributions to the National Gallery, which no one owns. Yeah.
I just thought it was
the National Portrait Gallery has free admission, and there are now around 2 million visits each year, or there was until they closed it down. And it's got an annual turnover of 16 million. Shakespeare is also a former owner of the blog website Conservative Home and Politics Home. A second name of the blog is to represent grassroots Conservatives, and whilst being independent of the Conservative Party, it is fully supportive of it. He was named one of the top 20 most influential people in politics in 2015. In July 2008, The Guardian listed Shakespeare as among the top 100 media personalities in the UK, calling him the pollster with the uncanny ability of getting it right.
How do they vote someone in like that who you've never heard of, ever?
Well, I'm going to go into a bit more of his background in a second. That was sort of like a brief. But on a side note, Conservative Home is a British right-wing blog. Remember, it's right-wing and he owns it, yeah? Which supports, but is independent of the Conservative Party. It was first established by Tim Montgomery in 2005 with the aim of arguing for a broad conservative spectrum, which is serious about social justice and fair competitive economy. In 2017, the blog stated that it gets over 2 million unique visitors a year. So it's not a blog, really, it's data collection. In 2009, Lord Ashcroft, then Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, took a 57% share in politics at home. I won't go into that one because it's taking me off this subject. So this guy, he runs a right-wing blog and works for the government. Shakespeare was born Stephen Kowalski in 1957, where his German father, a journalist, was the German press liaison officer at the headquarters of the British Army of the Rhine. Right? Which already sets off alarm bells to me about this family. Anyone who was a press officer in West Germany in 1957 to the British Army was more than likely an intelligence operative.
Yeah, had to be.
In fact, his dad was the German press liaison officer at the headquarters to the entire British Army of the Rhine. When he was 5 years old, the family moved to the UK, so he's another refugee, starts with nothing, who went to MI6 training school, Oxford. So they came over with no, and they went to Oxford. Stephen was also an artist, and he called himself Stephen Kukowski, then, his proper name, creating the imaginary, the Brunch Museum, together with Fluxus artist George Brecht, first exhibited in London in 1976.
Right, not familiar.
Around the time that Zahawi was fleeing Iraq. George Brecht, he's another interesting character. He was called George Elias MacDiarmid and was an American conceptual artist and avant-garde composer. He was a key member of and influence on Fluxus, the international group of avant-garde artists centered around George Massinius. He was a professional chemist also who worked as a consultant for companies including Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and Mobil Oil. After graduating from Oxford, Shakespeare took a one-year teaching course in Kingston upon Thames, during which time he was a member of the Socialist Workers' Student Society. Hang on a minute. Another person seemingly flipping from far left over to far right. That alarm's ringing again.
Yeah, he just tells you.
And he went to Oxford, MI6 training school. He became a teacher and headmaster at Landmark West Preparatory School in Los Angeles, California in the 80s. And after marrying Rosamund Shakespeare, he exchanged his surname for that of his wife. After returning home to the UK from the US, he taught at Charles Edward Brooks School, secondary school, in Lambeth, where he used his original family name, Kukowski. It's starting to sound sinister to me. Well, why constant change of names?
It's always suspicious when you start ditching names and using. I don't know anyone who's ever done that. Do?
No. I don't know somebody who did it because they'd fallen out with the family. But I mean, you're talking to somebody who lived in a village. You know what I mean? He didn't go to Oxford or out like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
He went to Sallynook. He was critical of educational practice in Lambeth, and even his Standard published his criticism. So again, he's working for Archer. He's left wing, then he's right wing. He's one of the top 500 people. He's now a journalist as well, like a Mockingbird-esque type journalist. He became involved in politics using the name Shakespeare, first as a political commentator, and then as Archer's campaign director. So he's not just Archer's helper. He's the guy running the show. He was also the Conservative Party pollster in the 1997 general election. Shakespeare was a Conservative candidate for Colchester, although he lost. During the campaign, Margaret Thatcher, against whom he had demonstrated as a student 17 years earlier, came to Colchester to support him in his attempt to win the seat for the Conservatives.
Right.
Who is this guy to get Thatcher out supporting him? Yeah. An article read, Stephen Shakespeare has the unrivaled ability to understand and predict political outcomes. Within a year of founding market research and polling company YouGov, he scored a major coup by predicting the 2001 election victory for Labour to an accuracy of 1%. Shakespeare's reputation as a fearsome innovator and businessman equals his political ability. YouGov has acquired major investment and now operates in the USA. Sounds like sheep dipping, persona building type stuff.
Yeah.
In July 2008, The Guardian listed Shakespeare, as I said, among the top 100 personalities. This again, we've heard this over and over and over again, haven't we? I'd never heard of this guy until I did the research into Hancock, actually. I heard of him then. I mentioned him in Hancock 1. And some of the other characters come into play via YouGov, which also then add oddities again to it all. Catherine Margaret Aston, who is now Baroness Ashton of Upland, and her husband, Peter Kellner, who is the former president of YouGov. And Kellner was a political analyst for the BBC current affairs programmes. Kellner was engaged by YouGov's founders, Shakespeare and Zahawi, to become chairman in 2001 when it floated for £18 million in 2005. Kellner then owned 6% of the company. He's married to Catherine Aston, Baroness Ashton of Uplands, a Labour Party politician and the first and former High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy. So she's quite a big hitter, this woman. This is where politics start to go mental. We have two Conservatives, Zahawi and Shakespeare, both protégés of Lord Archer, both apparently approaching Mr. BBC to be chairman of YouGov. Baroness Ashton worked for the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, CND, as an administrator in 1982 and was elected as its national treasurer and subsequently one of its vice chairs. MI5 and MI6 was heavily involved in the infiltration of CND. Cathy Massiter is a British whistleblower and former member of MI6, revealed that the British Security Service carried out surveillance on British trade unions, civil rights and organisations and the CND. This Baroness Ashton, she is a socialist through and through. Like Mickey, documents seen by the Daily Mail on Sunday, she was a member and she went to Communist Party meetings. Some think that CND, Greenpeace, etc. was set up by Tavistock, don't they, and MI5 as a front to control the opposition, in fairness. In fact, in a Time story in 2009, intelligence documents show that British domestic intelligence agency MI5 had tagged Peter Kellner, this woman's husband, and his wife as communist sympathisers because of their anti-apartheid activism and long-term involvement with the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, considered a subversive movement. Kellner, who, like his wife, denied involvement with communist groups, and revealed that he was approached by a KGB operative at the 1984 Labour Party conference in Blackpool, which he was covering for the left-wing New Statesman and Society magazine. The KGB operative appears to have been Yuri Kudinov, who was a Russian, obviously, newspaper correspondent. Today, Kudinov chairs Russia's National Reserve Bank, because that's what you do when you're a newspaper reporter. A private corporation owned by KGB veteran Alexander Lebedev. You remember Lebedev?
Yeah.
It was Boris's mate who went to them private parties in Italy, where everything goes. Kellner revealed that Kudinov took him out for dinner in Blackpool, and the two of them met again on at least two other occasions. I think you'd remember when you met a Russian KGB operative, until Kellner declined more regular contact. Of course he did. In 1985, Kudinov was one of the 24 Soviets expelled from the UK on allegations of spying. The 24 were named by the Soviet KGB Colonel Oleg Gordivsky, who had defected to the UK earlier that year. He'd been a double agent since 1966. So, Baron Ashton has also been to the World Economic Forum. Not bad for a communist. Mind you, this is communism that we're going through. Or as the Rise Above guys call it, the Soviet Union. I like that. So to summarise on Shakespeare, I have several questions about this Shakespeare character. There is hardly any real info about him, and yet he is apparently one of the most influential people in the UK. Why did he change his name to Kowalski, from Kowalski? Who was his father? Did he work for Cold War in the intelligence services? Did Shakespeare work for the intelligence agencies, infiltrating the far left as a member of the Social Workers Student Society? He then flipped and went Tory. Not just Tory, but far-right Tory, helping the corrupt Baron Archer run for mayor. He also ran as a Conservative candidate. Archer said that he was the most promising of his protégés, which included Zahawi, Javid, Patel, Quaiteng, Tobias Ellwood, Robert Alphen, and other Tory MPs who are now in Parliament. Ian Zahawi worked with Kellner, who, with his wife Baroness Aston, were far-left communist members and sympathisers. Kellner admitted he was in touch with the KGB. So Shakespeare went from far-left member to owning and running far-right Tory conservative blogs to working with far-left communists at YouGov. None of this makes sense, does it, Chris?
No.
Unless he's got a split personality.
And it makes you think more about Archer as well, doesn't it? What the hell was he, man? What was he doing?
Well, he's very influential. He's very influential in all this, isn't it, Archer? I think either he were coerced into doing it because that's probably why he got thrown in Nick, because he was probably fighting against something or whatever. And they said, "Well, this is it. We've got this on you now. We kept you out of jail, so you'll do what we say." Then he stuck two fingers up, or they've just thrown him under a bus for some reason. He's
vanished, hasn't he, after that, really? I mean, he brought on a couple of more books, but you don't see any mention of him anymore.
This could all be a coincidence, Chris.
Probably.
Yeah. YouGov, to me, looks like a data collection. It looks like a spook operation. It's owned by the same hedge funds like BlackRock, etc., who all have a leading role in this current nonsense unfolding, which I keep saying, like I say, it could just be a total coincidence.
It makes you wonder. Listen to this. Is it all coming from England? The whole nonsense.
No.
Yeah. Would you say not?
No. I would say not, and I think you'll see further down that the links to this Le Cercle. I mean, Le Cercle. I could have actually written a full script on Le Cercle. Le Cercle could have been longer than this.
Right.
I mean, that's fascinating.
I mean, I know we always say fascinating. That sounds like something from a bloody Marvel film.
Yeah. So, this part's called the Bazani tribe, Kurdish groups, and cryptic Jewish. I want to point out in this section about Zahawi's ethnic background, this is not an attack on any group of people or any bodies or religious beliefs. We don't have any interest in that type of thing. This is not a point of view. This is a collection of evidence that will allow you to form your own points of view. As we know, Zahawi is of Kurdish origin. That is mainstream knowledge. You know, we're not making that up. He's a Kurd. But there are a few different religious groups within the Kurdish population with different ethnic backgrounds and religious beliefs, which I didn't understand that. I thought they were all like Muslim, and that's my narrow-mindedness.
I'll be honest, I don't know that much about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. The Kurds, or Kurdish people, are an Iranian ethnic group native to the mountainous region of Western Asia known as Kurdistan, which spans southeastern Turkey, northwestern Iran, northern Iraq, and northern Syria. There are enclaves of Kurds in central Anatolia, Korsayan, I don't know where that is, and the Caucasus, as well as significant Kurdish communities in cities of Western Turkey and Istanbul, Western Europe, primarily in Germany, as well. The Kurdish population is estimated to be between 30 to 45 million. The total number of Kurds in 1991 was placed at 20.5 million, with 48% of its number living in Turkey, 24% in Iran, 18% in Iraq, and 4% in Syria. Main regions that currently exist in Kurdistan are as follows. Main religions: that currently exist: Sunni Islam, Shia Islam, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, Yaranism, Yazidism, Atheism, and Judaism. So some of the Kurds are of Jewish backgrounds. Today, Sunni Islam is the most adhered religion in Kurdistan. The Kurds are the largest ethnic group minority in Iraq, comprising of between 20% and 25% of the country's population, according to the CIA World Factbook. How mad is that? So, what religion is Zahawi? I couldn't find. I don't know. Somebody might be able to tell us that, but I couldn't find that. Saddam Hussein apparently practiced Sunni Islam, which makes up 85% of the Kurdish religion. So, if Saddam Hussein chased him out, I would probably say that he probably wasn't the same religion as Saddam Hussein. I'm not saying he wasn't.
I would say
I wouldn't know. Yeah, I wouldn't know. that is a pure guess. That so
I would hazard a guess.
It's not an opinion or anything.
Religions are left to us. I would hazard a guess. Religions are left to us to argue about. You probably have no religion, or a religion that we don't know about.
I'm guessing what he is, not whether it's the value.
Do you know something I noticed though when you were on about that? You know when you watch the news or you're watching like BBC or whatever, and they're going about Kurds and Sunnis and that, they never explain it, do they? They never explain who they are or where they're from.
No, never explain
it. These are now your enemy.
I don't want to say
these are now your enemy.
That's my rudimentary layman's explanation.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I am not saying I've got that right. Yeah.
But
I'm not saying I've got that right.
You hear these things banded around, but no one ever explains any of it. That's my point.
No.
I've always thought that.
In Zahawi's bio, it says he fled Saddam Hussein in 1976, or the Saddam Hussein regime. But Saddam Hussein didn't come to power until 1979. Saddam Hussein did play a part in the coup that brought the Ba'ath Party to power in 1967. The president in power at that time was Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr, who was actually Saddam's cousin, or Saddam was his cousin. So why did the Zahawi family flee Iraq in 1976, 8 years after the coup? Who were Zahawi's family? Most people will not know that Zahawi's great-grandfather was also one Nadhim al-Zahawi, whom Zahawi was named after. His grandfather was the governor of the Central Bank of Iraq.
Dun, dun, dun.
He had his name on the He had his name on the dinar notes, and we know who owns the central banks, don't we? So you see, it is in the bloodlines. It's all in the bloodlines. Always goes back to those bloodlines, and we'll come onto them a little bit next. But yeah, when I was looking at this guy, I'm thinking, why is this guy in this position of power now? And I'd like to thank Sam for that, to be fair. Sam found that out. It was a real dig with that. But, that was one of the big dot connectors for me, that one. Because if your grandfather was the governor of a central bank, then that's quite a big story, is that. Central Bank of Iraq, Zahawi's ancestors. After World War I, Iraq's monetary system was administered by the British Mandate of Mesopotamia until 1931, when the Iraq Currency Board was established in London to issue the new Iraqi dinar and maintain its reserves. So basically, the stolen reserves, and the central bank would run from Britain. I wonder where that would run from and who owned that one. The Iraq Currency Board pursued a conservative monetary policy, maintaining very high reserves behind the dinar, in other words, gold, which was further strengthened by its link to the British pound. In 1949, the Currency Board was replaced by the National Bank of Iraq, which had been founded 2 years before on November 16, 1947. The National Bank of Iraq became the Central Bank of Iraq in 1956. Since switching over to its own central bank, yeah, right, the central bank monetary system was replete with mismanagement, coercive stopgap measures, and the production of an unstable, unreliable currency, which had not been tradable on the international market for many years. Saddam Hussein wielded monetary and dinar as a powerful instrument of repression. Makes me laugh how they can say, and I don't know Saddam Hussein, he's probably as corrupt as all the rest of them, but in my opinion, he probably went against the people in power or the people running these things, and he's paid the price. Or probably has paid
he was put there by the British, though, wasn't he?
Well, no, he wasn't put there by the British. There was a coup. Now, that could have been back to change things in Iraq. The thing around Iraq always, and Kurdistan and all these other countries like that, is oil, in it. So the central bank was there, and it was controlled from London by the City of London. So anyway, the British pulled out. They control the bank. That's it. That's all they want. You don't pay us. We're going to send army in, and that's what happened. After the fall of Saddam Hussein's government, the Central Bank of Iraq was established as Iraq's independent central bank by the Central Bank of Iraq Law 2004, which was developed by the Americans. Independent, though. And it was authorised capital of 100 billion dinars. And it looks like dollars, that, but it's dinars. According to the law, 100% of the bank's capital stock would be held by the state and would not be transferable. The Constitution of Iraq states that the central bank is a financially and administratively independent institution responsible for the Council of Representatives of Iraq. According to the Constitution, the federal government of Iraq has the exclusive authority of establishing and administering a central bank. So what they're saying is that the central bank is not run by the Iraqi government.
Well, the same as every bank, isn't it?
Same as every central bank. And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing that central bank mandate. Incidentally, the mandate for Mesopotamia in the memorandum written on the 22nd of April 1918 listed the social groups that the British should support are the Jewish community in Baghdad, the notables in Baghdad and Basra, the rich landowning Arabs and Jews, and the sheikhs of the sedentary tribes. The Central Bank of Iraq have 50 billion in reserves and owe 150 billion and could rise to over 300 billion according to the Council of Foreign Relations. So that means it will. It's important to understand that the elites have never left the region, ever. The current president, Baham Saleh, attended Cardiff University and the University of Liverpool. He also holds dual Iraqi and UK passports. Since 2004, when Saddam was toppled, all four presidents of Iraq have had EU or US educations, like Jalal Talabani, the second president. He also has citizenship of Iraq and the United Kingdom. The last three leaders of Iraq have also all been Kurds. Yeah? And I think there's actually a law that they've got to be Kurds.
Right.
Or Kurd Sunnis, yeah?
Right.
The president. And the Bank of Iraq, they've got to have Kurdish and another one. So anyway, it's yeah. So all them presidents there are all educated in Britain, America or Europe, and they've all got dual passport. I think one of them had an American passport and a German passport as well. So what? Anyway. So we come to Zahawi's father, Herath Zahawi. Sam found this guy out as well. Herath Zahawi, the father who once declared bankrupt because he put his family house on number 7 red, but still managed to put his 2 kids through private school, etc. Bankruptcy is a wonderful way to get someone to do something for you, like I said, especially for old friends back home. Herath now is 72 and enjoys huge contracts from a company he set up after 2003, after the 2003 US-led invasion of Iraq. The company is called IPBD, or Iraq Project Business Development, and was in the early CPA coalition provisional authority after the invasion, ready to fill its pockets with rebuilding Iraq. IPBD is a steel manufacturing company which pays Zahawi and Zahawi Limited. That's a surprise. IPBD was set up by Herath Zahawi and benefits from his son's position.
So him and his dad are basically raping their own country.
Yes.
And he set it all up on a very basic level before the invasion of Iraq, ready to go.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
I bet he sleeps like a baby.
Well, he will sleep like a baby. They don't care. You know, he'll have had this burning ambition to do that since apparently being booted out, penniless, drifting on a bit of wood over from Iraq, Gulf of over through Mediterranean, Arabian Gulf to Mediterranean.
Dragged himself off the beach
anyway.
in his rags, sent his
in his rags,
and started up a show jumping.
Managed to get into a Vauxhall Senator. Right, so now we're going to go into Zahawi's links to a group of people from Kurdistan called Barzani. And these are Zahawi's powerful friends, and he's mates with this prominent, powerful family, the head of which is a guy called Masoud Barzani, who was president of the Kurdistan region of Iraq from 2005 to 2017. Barzani was born in the self-declared Republic of Mahabad and succeeded his father, Mustafa Barzani, as leader of the KDP in 1979. Nekhiravan Idris Barzani is now president of the Kurdistan region. I think it's his nephew. It is his nephew. The Barzani tribe is a term for both Kurdish Barzani tribe and for the confederation of various neighbouring tribes inhabiting Barzan in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. The Barzan tribe is mostly Naqshbandi
Good luck with that one.
and one of I got that one, and one of the most influential in Kurdistan. It is furthermore claimed that the tribe converted to Islam, and it also has Jewish members as well. The Barzani family is a ruling power family of Kurdistan, and Zahawi, as I said, is big mates with the Barzanis and has been since the mid-90s, although I actually think that is this related in some sort of way family-wise, but I didn't find anything out that. That's just me. That's my opinion. The Barzanis are basically the rulers of the area. In fact, they've been rulers for centuries. The Barzani family have been the de facto rulers of the Middle East Autonomous Kurdistan region, based in the mountains of North Baghdad, Iraq. Members of the Barzani family allegedly control a large number of commercial enterprises in Iraq Kurdistan with a gross value of several $1 billion, although no evidence of such ownership by Masoud Barzani actually exists. Masoud's son is Prime Minister of Kurdistan as well, and as I said, his nephew is president. So you could hazard a guess they do own all those things. It is thought that some of the Barzani family converted from Christianity to Muslim in the 19th century, and some from Judaism as well. In fact, some of the Barzani family have the Star of David on their headstones in Israel.
Right.
Like, there's a guy called Moshe Barzani, or Barzani, was an Iraqi-born Kurdish Jew and a member of the Lehi Freedom Fighters of Israel, an underground movement during the Jewish insurgency of Palestine, or in Palestine. The Barzani family, have also used the KGB, CIA, Mossad, and MI6 support. And Kurdistan has rich oil reserves. In an article in The Guardian from the 14th of December 2016, the headline read, MP stands to make $1.5 million from Kurdistan Oil Company sale. A Conservative MP will receive a payout of nearly $1.5 million if the sale completes of the Kurdistan Oil-based company, for which he has worked since July 2015, alongside representing his constituents in Stratford-upon-Avon. Nadhim Zahawi, who acts as Chief Strategy Officer for Gulf Keystone, was granted performance units on Monday, shortly before it emerged that China's state-owned oil company, Sinopec, was in talks to buy the company, which is currently valued at $350 million. His stake and that of two other directors would be worth 2% if the business is sold in the next year, valuing the overall holding at least £7 million. That is. The MP's share would amount to about 1.4 million, a fifth of the director's pot. Zahawi joined Keystone, or Gulf Keystone, in 2015 last year as Chief Strategy Officer. He earns a monthly salary of £20,125, which is over 240 grand a year. He has also been receiving regular bonus payments of up to £26,000 for advising the company. The MP is also a member of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee and has led a series of visits by British MPs to the politically sensitive Kurdistan region. Last January, Zahawi organised, last January being when he was the Chief Strategy Officer, member of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, he organised a visit to Kurdistan for Boris Johnson. now the Foreign Secretary, after which Johnson called for closer ties between the UK and the region. Now, that's a surprise, isn't it? A few months later, Zahawi hosted a meeting in the region's capital, Erbil, for British politicians and the Kurdistan president, Masoud Barzani. So that was a story in, The Guardian from 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say he's pretty well tied in with this ruling family. In fact, I found a Zoom call or the transcripts of a Zoom call, which was a conference call that included the Prime Minister, Masoud Barzani, and ex-British Prime Minister Sir John Major, and Nadhim Zahawi MP. The Kurdistan representation is in partnership with the APPG on Kurdistan region, marks the 30th anniversary of the Kurdistan uprising and Sir John Major's Safe Haven initiative. If you remember back to that Jeffrey Archer charity, it was all around that type of thing. Nadhim Zahawi took part in the event and shared his experience as a young Kurd who campaigned and marched in London against the tyranny and genocide that was committed by Saddam Hussein's regime. I think he learnt quite a lot from Saddam, don't you? He said, "I will never forget those scenes of the mountains after Saddam's army had been pushed back from Kuwait and the Kurdish people had risen up for their rights but were being attacked by that tyrannical dictator," he added. The Kurdish people have since those early days continued to rely on themselves to build that democracy and tolerant society that welcomes people of all religions to the lands of the Kurds. Bollocks.
We had no idea what was going on
so
there.
You've got
did we?
a tyrannical...
No, it was just TV. It was a TV show, wasn't it? That whole Iraq thing.
Yeah.
We've got no idea what really happened at all.
Well, no. Well, I mean, it were all about filling people's pockets, wasn't it? The whole Iraq, Afghanistan, as we're seeing now play out with that puppet show that's on at the moment. Yeah. So, in the early 20th century, Kurdish Jews numbered between 20 to 30,000 and lived in towns and villages from Iran to Iraq. The Kurdish Jews were highly regarded throughout Kurdistan, and when in the 1950s most Kurdish Jews emigrated to Israel, they left behind neighbours and friends who took care of their synagogues, in some cases for years. Today, almost all Kurdish Jews live in Israel, numbering around 200,000. We've also found some evidence, but it was vague evidence, that his grandfather, remember the guy that worked for the Bank of Iraq, and he had his name on the Nadhim al-Zahawi, he ended up in Israel, which also coincides with the fact that a minority of Kurdish people were actually Jewish, or cryptic Jews, hence the banking link. I think in some ways Zahawi is blood related to the Barzani tribe. I think there's something there. And one possible link backwards is a chap who I dug out, called Jamil Siddiqui al-Zahawi. There's a lot of Zahawis here, so you have to bear with me. Zahawi, though, didn't seem like a very prominent name. It weren't like Smith in Britain or Jones in Wales type of thing. But one possible link to Zahawi I found, or his ancestry, that could explain that bloodlines from famous Kurdish people was a poet and philosopher called Jamil Siddiqui al-Zahawi. Remember, his grandfather was called al-Zahawi, and Zahawi was named after him. So there is a link there somewhere. They must have dropped the al when they came to the UK in 76. And this guy was regarded as one of the greatest contemporary poets of the Arab world and was known for his defence of women's rights. Jamil Siddiq al-Zahawi, born in 1863 in Baghdad, is descendant from a prominent family of Kurdish origin. His father was a mufti of Iraq and a member of the scholarly Baban clan. His father, who was partial to Jamil's intelligence, decided to raise the boy himself. His father taught him poetry from a young age and encouraged him to develop an inquisitive mind. He was raised in Baghdad, where he was initially educated in the Kutab, or a Quranic school. He did not receive a formal education. Instead, his father engaged private tutors, remind you of anybody here? Private tuition? To teach him science, rhetoric, and grammar. He may have gained some formal education in jurisprudence, which is law, logic, astronomy, and exegesis, although details I couldn't find any, a bit sketchy. However, it is clear that he was mostly self-taught using books, especially translations of European works on science and philosophy. Through his father, he participated in Baghdad's literary society by attending majals, which are social gatherings of the literary elite. In 1896, he was invited to Istanbul. That's you just get invited to Istanbul. And between 96 and 1898, he based himself in Istanbul, but also travelled to Yemen on an imperial decree as part of a delegation to carry out reforms. In Istanbul, he was appointed Professor of Islamic Studies at the Malaki School and Professor of Arabic Literature at the University of Istanbul. Not bad for somebody who didn't attend school, Chris, that is it? While in Baghdad, he was exiled for his outspoken views by the despotic Hamidi regime and forced to return to Istanbul in around 1908. In Istanbul, he worked for the Committee of Union and Progress, also known as the Young Turks. The Committee of Union Progress was a secret revolutionary organisation and political party between 1889 and 1926 in the Ottoman Empire of the Republic of Turkey. It is well known that the Young Turks were supported by Britain and the British Secret Services. After Iraq's independence in 1921, he was elected to Parliament twice and appointed in the upper chamber. He also had the opportunity to read Arabic translations of Western poetry and works by Shakespeare. Who would have thought that a possible relative would be working with a man from MI6 who changed his name to Shakespeare nearly 70, 80 years on? Is that just another one of them weird...
Just one of those weird...
clues in a Scooby trail?
Yeah, it means nothing but everything.
It's strange, that,
yeah,
you know?
It's like, it reminds you of what is it, the Garraway one, doesn't it? It's just weird words that just keep...
It does, yeah. Yeah, the Draper, yeah. As I said, his father was a Mufti of Iraq and a member of the scholarly Baban clan. The Mufti is an Islamic jurist qualified to issue non-binding opinion, fatwa, on a point of Islamic law, a sharia. The act of issuing fatwas is called ifta. Muftis and their fatwas played an important role throughout Islamic history, taking on new roles in the modern era. If you remember that, who was that guy who wrote that book? He got a fatwa put out on him, and they made out that it was a death threat, didn't they?
Salman Rushdie.
But in reality, yeah, it's not a death threat; it's an opinion.
Well, was it? Is it really? So it's just, you're right. Yeah,
but it says here a non-binding opinion fatwa,
because they made out it was every Muslim wanted to kill him. Do you know what, Dom? Just quickly, just listen to this. It just fills you with proper sadness, doesn't it? Of, you know, when you listen to all this richness of like the Islamic world, and it's just it's gone on it. I mean, I went to Egypt in 1990, and used to like to get the hippie trail bus from Alexandria to Dahab down the south to go snorkeling or wherever, and I don't know. It's just really sad, isn't it? Now, all this rich history and all this learning and all this stuff, you know, and now our view is destroyed. Our view is now that they're just a bunch of terrorists. It's disgusting, isn't it? It's just horrible.
It is disgusting.
And then now, even now, what's going on now? All people do is try to get onto an aeroplane that's about to take off and stand on the roof of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just been it's just disgusting.
How it's been portrayed now.
It's horrendous. And I remember it happening because it went from Russia. We hate the Russians to True Lies came out, and the bad guy was a Muslim terrorist with bomb drowned him.
A rocket launcher.
And it literally happened overnight, didn't it? And then
that was Rambo as well, wasn't it? Rambo as well.
Well, if you want a real version of Afghanistan, watch Rambo 3.
Yeah,
where he's helping the Taliban take the Russians out. It's disgusting. Yeah. And it fills me with anger and a bit of pain when you listen to stuff like this. Because you just forget everything that happened. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, but going back to Zahawi, if you look now at his sort of route, this Jamil Sadiq al-Zahawi was one of the scholarly Baban clan, which were highly regarded. And Baban was a Kurdish principality, so they actually had their own principality. from the 16th century up to 1850. The modern city of Sulaymaniyah was built by Baban in 1784 and served as their capital prior to the founding of the city. Sulaymaniyah, also called Slimani, is a city in the east of the Kurdistan region, and I reckon that this is part of where that area is, where the oil is, or there's some sort of rich history there.
Oh, they're wanting to wipe out the history as well, by the way.
Yeah, wanting to wipe it out or cover it up and put a big, like a fence around it where people can't go. But if you think about a British man named Reck visited Baban city and estimated that its population was no more than 10,000, containing over 2,000 families, of which 2,000 were Muslim, 130 Jewish, and 14 Christian. So they actually people live together when you look at it like that.
Of course they did.
Fighting
of course they did.
You know, they live together.
It's a modern invention of nonsense. Even in Israel, there were Muslims and Christians and all other religions living side by side. That was the point.
It's been an invented battle,
an invented
battle,
religious
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
When the Brits entered Sulaymaniyah in 1918, the city was no longer under the influence of the Baban dynasty. Descendants of the dynasty had joined the Kurdish independence movement in Iraq, while some others became Ottoman politicians. So Zahawi may have ambitions to take back his ancestral homeland, or at least rob it of the oil.
I would. I don't know. I mean, I would guess that he don't give a shit about his homeland, or he's got a payout just to do some dastardly shit. That's where he's got, I think, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And then he's destroying all his heritage and all that old. I don't know. It kind of makes you a bit angry, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, because you look at some of the Arabic world, and some of it were, some of it, I don't know, the culture were fantastic.
Well, it's the most ancient. It's the most ancient, beautiful. I mean, I've been to where I've been. I've been to Morocco. I've been to Egypt, and beautiful, and all that stuff, all that ancient stuff. It's just we can't even go there now, can we? You can't go to Iraq. No. You can't go to Afghanistan. I'd love to go to those countries 20, 30 years ago. Now you just can't go. It's a war zone created by us. Our war zone. We've decided
Lebanon, all these places now.
Yeah, Syria. Yeah. You mean you look at all pictures of those places, and also is it to wipe out the architecture and all the history? Is it to get rid of all that stuff? Because when as we've talked about, as went into Iraq, they went straight to the museums and destroyed them. And we talked about the Gates of Baal thing that was destroyed by ISIS for some reason.
Yeah, right.
Although in the ninja renter suits. But it's disgusting. They've destroyed all that, and now young English and Western people's opinion of the Muslim world and Arabic world is they're just a bunch of terrorists who want to kill and destroy your Western life. No, we're the effing bad guys here, aren't we? Yeah, we invaded them.
We are the bad guys.
No one invaded us.
The West are the Nazis.
We're the Nazis. We're the bad guys.
Like it or not, we're the bad guys.
Sorry if that upsets
you. And it's a fact. We're the oppressors, whether we like it or not. And our money that we give our governments, and I say governments or criminals, is spent on taking over the world.
Yeah, and Iran and Syria are the last ones on the list. They're the last ones on the list, so we can totally decimate the entire of the Middle East.
Yeah.
When what we should be doing is going over there and seeing all their different cultures and tasting all the different. We just want to decimate it.
Yeah,
it makes my blood boil. Actually, I feel quite angry thinking about it.
So, let's move on before you get angry, because we've got a little bit to finish off here.
As angry as I get.
And this bit really was. I would say the icing on the cake, really. Dug a lot of information out about Zahawi, but this bit sort of completed it all. And this bit, as I mentioned earlier, this bit could have gone on and on and on, and actually had its own series. I'm not going to do a series on it, but it could have had its own series. This part, and I'm only going to skirt around the edges a little bit about what this thing does, but. This secret group that Zahawi was in was called The Circle, and while I was researching the Sage stuff, Zahawi's name were coming up because he's linked to the nonsense and the arm spear of everybody. Someone emailed me actually, and just to show that I do read the emails, or we read the emails and the contacts. I was passed information on by someone called Jane, who's a sheep farm watcher or listener or subscriber.
Well, I like that term.
And this is
sheep farm watcher.
She is. This is the synchronicity at its best, really. Unbeknown to Jane, as I say, we're already researching Zahawi, and having done small pieces on him, and Sam had done quite a lot of research on him in the Hancock presentation, which was the first Meet the Flockers expose, if you remember. I wanted to do a deeper dive on him because he just looked dodgy. But her information sent me in a totally new direction that was both intriguing and scary, to be quite fair, because it unlocked a lot of strange information. Zahawi is a member of an ultra-secret organisation that is invite only. Not only is he a member, but Nadhim Zahawi was the chairman of this organisation from 2015 to 2018. Incidentally, you may remember another Archer protege, Kwasi Kwarteng MP. Well, he apparently was also chairman of Le Cercle after Zahawi. I don't know whether he is now, because as I say, it's cloaked in a bit of secrecy, but you can actually find a Wikipedia page on it. And in 2008, he received financial assistance from Le Cercle, did Kwarteng, to attend a conference in Washington. And in 2019, he was funded by the same group to attend a meeting in Bahrain. Bear in mind, he's an MP when he's doing this.
MP or where? Whereabouts is he? Do you know where he's an MP? I've never heard of him. That's what I find interesting.
He's a member of cabinet. I mentioned it earlier on. What his position, I've forgotten now. But he's a member of the cabinet.
But it's funny, these guys in these secret things, even like Zahawi, you'd never heard of him, had you, until recently. And, you know what I mean? They kept under the radar, but they're in secret. I've never even heard of I've never heard of Le Cercle either, to be honest.
No. But this organisation, like a few others we've sort of uncovered or covered, whatever you want to call them, like the Hackett one, in the Boris one, which was basically a spy network operating without the usual handcuffs and red tape of government, blindfolded.
That's the real power, though, isn't it? That's the real clout, isn't it?
The unseen hand, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, the people behind the curtain. They are operating behind the curtain, then bringing about policy changes, acting out espionage against us. And this group has been linked to assassinations and murders, which is the same sort of thing, child trafficking, banking corruption. It is also part of the Opus Dei group, which is the religious Roman Catholic sect, stroke army, etc., etc. I have also read that this group makes the Bilderbergers look like rank amateurs.
I was thinking that, I was thinking Bilderberg is just a bluff. Compared to, or was
I don't think they're a bluff, but I think they're a surface thing. Yeah,
but when you think, were they at one time had some clout, and then as soon as they got found out, hang on a minute, let's just move them back. Let's keep that one fluffy and put another one there instead. Or
well, the problem is they can be out there in front now, but you still don't know what they're talking about or meeting about. Just like Chatham House, just like Council on Foreign Relations, or all these places.
Then you've got Le Cercle that no one's even heard of.
Exactly. The group I'm talking about is, as Chris said, called Le Cercle. Most of you probably haven't heard of it, and I've got to say I hadn't until a couple of months ago. But in this section, I'm going to give you a little insight into what it is and what it does and what it's being linked with. And as I say, this whole story, Zahawi is sort of like the lead guy, but really, Le Cercle sums up everything that's going on in the world now, at this moment in time. These are one of the groups that are pressing the buttons. And make no mistake, by being a member of Le Cercle, Zahawi has thrown his hat in the ring with the black nobility, the pan-European elites, the City of London banking rulers, which is basically the Vatican, owned by the Jesuit, etc., Rothschild concerns, yada, 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 as we know. We will see why this man and others are following orders from this group, and I've been for the past years. You'll see the list of MPs that have been involved. This group has now been run by British intelligence since at least 1970, and probably since its conception. It is now clear that Zahawi is not on the side of the UK population, but on the side of the New World Order and its agenda. And in this last section, we will show some of the characters from Le Cercle and who they are and what they're worth, and you'll see the real movers and shakers. In a fantastic piece on the ISGP studies.com website, a full story can be seen if you want to read it. And I suggest that you do read it to get a picture of what this underground organisation is. As I said, we could do a full series on the Circle, and it'll go on for months and months, but we've got other stuff to do. The Circle is a secretive, invitation-only foreign policy forum. Its focus has been opposing communism, or so it says, and in the 70s and 80s supporting apartheid when the group had intimate ties with funding from South Africa. The group was described by British Conservative MP Alan Clark as an Atlantist society of right-wing dignitaries.
What does that mean?
An article from
Atlantis,
the far right, yeah, but as in America, Britain, an article from a guy called Gary Jordan, an author of the C19 Illusion, A Cacophony of Lies, which I think you need to read that. I emailed Mr. Jordan, see if he'd do a podcast, but he said he didn't do podcasts, but you need to order the book. And this is what he said. The Circle was established in 1952-53 by Freemasons, Opus Dei, and members of Nazi collaborators. Jean Violet was a Nazi collaborator, along with former Prime Minister of France and Bilderberger Group founding member Antoine Pinay, and the last Emperor of Austria, Otto von Habsburg. So they're the three who were shoved in front of the camera, if you like, to set the Circle up in 1952-53. David Teacher, author of the fantastic book Rogue Agents from the late 80s, wrote that the Circle complex can be seen to be an international coalition of right-wing intelligence veterans working internationally to promote top conservative politicians who would shape the world.
Shape the world.
Shape the world. Not shape Britain, shape the world. Germans Konrad Adenauer and Franz Josef Strauss were also co-founders, and reconciliation between France and Germany was an important goal. John Eugene Violet was a lawyer and spook, described by David Teacher as the right-hand man of Antoine Pinay, or Minder. Violet worked for the SDECE, French intelligence services, and was an influential behind-the-scenes actor in post-World War II Europe. Violet also worked with Opus Dei, another group cloaked in secrecy, with members scattered around throughout governments, banking and business, and probably army and etc. Opus Dei, which means in Latin, work of God, is a Roman Catholic lay and clerical organisation whose members seek personal Christian perfection and strive to implement Christian ideals and values in their occupations and in society as a whole. Theologically conservative, Opus Dei accepts the teaching authority of the Church without question and has long been the subject of controversy. It has been accused of secrecy, cult-like practices, and political ambitions.
Sounds Jesuit, doesn't it? It sounds like the same thing.
It is, yeah. Konrad Adenauer, Chancellor of West Germany, apparently established a good working relationship with the British military authorities. Franz Josef Strauss fought for Hitler, and after the war, he served as translator for the US Army. So flipping sides, we see this a lot. He served himself until after the war, when he started using his middle name, Joseph. So it was called Franz Straub, and started using his middle name. Again, we see that name changing as well. Just to give us a taste of what Strauss was like, Strauss stated in a letter to The Hague in March 1957, "I think you now know how I personally think about the frontline units of the Waffen-SS. They are included in my admiration for the German soldiers of the last war." The Circle is a fascist organisation and has been linked to satanic rituals involving children, and also linked to Marc Dutroux, the Belgian child abductor.
Wow.
Here's again what author Gary Jordan said in a blog about Zahawi in a piece called "The Dark Fascist Connections of the UK's Vaccine Minister, Nadhim Zahawi." And I'm going to read this out word for word, so... More troubling than any of this is the connection between Le Cercle's Bonvoisin and Boignart's, they're two people, I've got the pronouncing, I've probably destroyed that, and the well-known marked the true child abduction and murders that rocked the nation of Belgium in the mid-1990s. Soon after Dutroux' arrest, and with the eyes of the public planted firmly on the case, many witnesses began to come forward to speak of abuse at the hands of the paedophile ring, which they had attempted to report in the past, only to be ignored and rejected. That never happened. It became very apparent that the lowly Dutroux was part of a much wider network of child abusers in the country. Dutroux himself has on many occasions stated that he was involved in the kidnapping of children as a means to earn money via trafficking, and that he would subsequently supply powerful and wealthy individuals with abducted kids. Several victims would begin to give testimony and named some of Belgium's most powerful men, such as police commissioners, judges, bankers, and politicians. The witness testimony that came forth from the victims of the Belgian paedophile cult was solid and immensely credible. Some who were interviewed had indeed known each other as part of the networks that they were dragged into as children. But at the time of the testimony, none of them had been in contact with each other for years and were unaware of the others' accusations. During their interviews, 5 of the witnesses named Le Cercle members Baron de Bonnevision and Paul van den Boyaert as their abusers and described an entrapment and blackmail operation in which high-target individuals were raping underage girls. Indeed, on a side note, this raises further questions about Nadhim Zahawi's involvement with another group, this one made up of primarily wealthy businessmen in the form of the so-called charitable trust in the UK known as the President's Club. Zahawi attended a men-only dinner organised by the now-defunct charity in 2018, in which female staff reported they had been subjected to sexual harassment and touched inappropriately. It was also visited in 2008 by serial paedophile Jimmy Savile, and in 2010 by Italian businessman and former Jeffrey Epstein associate Flavio Briatore. And he continues, at every stage of Le Cercle's existence, there is found to be major controversy, criminality and corruption. Their membership list, past and present, reads like a who's who of the 1% and transcends nationality, political allegiance and religious beliefs. It includes American neocons like Paul Bremer, Richard Pearl and Zbigniew Brzezinski, British ex-MI6 officers like Anthony and Andrew Cavendish, former CIA directors like William Casey and William Colby, Russian politicians like Yegor Gaida and Arkady Shivenko, Israeli Zionists like Benjamin Netanyahu, Shimon Peres and Dan Meador, and Arab royalty like Sultan Qaboos bin Said and Prince Turki bin Faisal Al Saud. Shadow governments, such as the one recently led by Britain's Jab Minister, I believe, are best summed up by a man called Gene Wheaton, a former security contractor who later became an insider and began speaking out about what he witnessed while working with the Circle member Ted Shackley. As the head of the group's US affairs through the Atlantic Circle Cooperation in Miami, Florida, Shackley, a former CIA officer, represented the mentality of the participants of such shady groups. As Wheaton said, this group really believes that the unwashed masses are ignorant, that we are the people who are not capable of governing ourselves, that we need this elitist group to control the country and the world. My experience with them is that they could be certified as criminally insane and put away in a rubber room and have the key thrown away. That's how dangerous they are. They are powerful. They are educated. And what makes them twice as dangerous? And that makes them twice as dangerous. And that's basically what's running the world right now.
Jesus, bloody hell!
And that's part of this guy's book. It's a good book. Is that?
What's the book called again, Dan?
The book is called.
While you look at that,
the C-19 Illusion, a cacophony of lies by Gary Jordan. Go on, what were you going to say, mate?
No, I was just going to say, I know we talked about McGowan's book, Programmed to Kill.
Yeah.
And he does quite a large chapter at the beginning of that about Detroit, that whole conspiracy, that Detroit conspiracy thing. Just to say that I think he states it in the book, or it was either in my head. The first chapter or two is quite hard to get through because he goes on about this stuff. And I'm going to reread that, and I think this is worth more talking about. To be fair, on the circle thing, because it also ties into. I think it
is as well.
Ties into that conspiracy asylums thing. I mean, this literally to me looks like the whole answer to everything of
what we're seeing now.
Of what we're seeing now, all the corruption, everything ties straight back. Everything all ties straight back to this.
Well, it ties to. You look at what this ties to. It ties to Vatican. It ties to banking. All these people. Like the private little boys' clubs at Oxford and Harvard and all these Skull and Bones and all these, they're offshoots of this bigger group of black nobility, the powerful pan-European elites, and old money.
They're all tied together by human trafficking and paedophilia. And that keeps everybody quiet because everyone's in the club.
Yeah. Even you've got to mention there about Jimmy Savile. Why is Jimmy Savile popping his head up at a meeting, a charity meeting in 2008? He's invited to the same one. You know?
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. You couldn't, if you were going to write a James Bond book, you couldn't write a book about Le Cercle and come up with what they
Somebody put that in the comments, actually, didn't they? One of his other ones. It's like a James Bond film, but there's no James Bond.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to carry on because there's a bit more on this Le Cercle. I found it very intriguing. I could have gone down this for hours, to be honest with you, but I'm sort of just touching the edges, and like you say, it probably does deserve a bigger shot. Le Cercle sample agenda from 1979, an agenda presented by Brian Crozier, noted that its goal to change the British government had been changed by the election of Margaret Thatcher, and among others, listed the following objectives. Now, when you listen to this, undercover financial transactions for political aims, international campaigns aiming to discredit hostile personalities or events, creation of a private intelligence service specialising in a selective point of view. So who were the chairmen up to this? As I mentioned, from 1953 to 71, Antoine Pinay, ex-president or prime minister of France, was it. Then his right-hand man, Jean Viollet, Voilet, was chairman from 1971 to 1980. And then this is where it changed, then it changes. 1980 to 85 was that chap there, Brian Crozier. Who was he? Well, Brian Crozier was a historian. This is what it says about him. He was a historian, a propagandist, and a journalist.
Perfect combo.
Perfect combo. He was one of the central staff members of a secret propaganda department belonging to the UK Foreign Office known as the Information Research Department. Remember that one from the Sage, where they're working from the officers there now, the IRD, where... which republished and supported much of his work and used his position to insert propaganda articles into British publications. Early in life, he believed in communism as a reaction to the Great Depression and to Adolf Hitler. But he later changed his philosophy, funnily enough, jumped ship again, and worked to combat communism. Crozier worked as director of the Forum World Features, set up in 1966 by the Congress for Cultural Freedom, which had ties to the American Central Intelligence Agency. No shit. He stated in 1975 that the World Forum Features had broken all ties now to the CIA, and when he became director in the 1960s, of course it had. But the IRD was that place that were doing the shipping 1984 around the world.
They were selling what? No, sorry.
1984, An Animal Farm.
Right,
George
right.
Orwell.
Right.
That was the department that George Orwell grasped up them people to be communists. Yeah. So from 1985 to 93, Julian Amery, or Baron Amery of Lustenlee, who was Jewish and ultra-pro-Zionist, his father wrote the first draft of the Balfour Declaration, and he was also a trustee of the Rhodes Trust. Julian's son worked closely with the Rothschilds. So if you don't know what the Balfour Declaration was, if you want to look it up online, but it was really a letter from Prime Minister Balfour to Baron Rothschild, saying basically they wouldn't stand in their way and they had first claim on Palestine. That was the Balfour Declaration. From 93 to 96, Jonathan Aitken was the chairman, and he was an MI6 agent, and that's all I need to say about him. From 96 to 2008, Norman Lamont, or Baron Lamont of Lerwick, before entering Parliament, he worked for N.M. Rothschild and Son, the investment bank, and became a director of the Rothschild Asset Management. In 2008, he became president of the Economic Research Council, Britain's oldest economics-based think tank. You see the type of people that are...
You look like a vampire, squinty-eyed vampire.
Yeah, he did look like a vampire.
Norman Lamont,
yeah. 2008 to 2013, Michael Ancram, 13th Marquess of Lothian and Baron Kerr of Montevoit. Ancram was a founding signatory of the 2005 Henry Jackson Society Principles, advertising a proactive approach to the spread of liberal democracy across the world, including, when necessary, by military intervention.
Liberal democracy by military intervention.
Intervention, yeah, exactly. 2013 to 2014, Rory Stewart OBE, which is that little dweeb-looking character. Now, Rory Stewart's father was born in Edinburgh, Scotland, and was a colonial official and diplomat who, in the 1970s, was a candidate to become the chief of the UK's Secret Intelligence Service, or MI6. And from 2015 to 2018, Nadhim Zahawi was the chairman. And then after him, it was that Querting. Yeah? So that's that little bit on Le Circle. These are the types of individuals driving the narrative, and Zahawi is one of them. A soldier of fortune willing to volunteer to push the plan and subject humans to this terror and tyranny, while calling out they're fighting against tyranny. History will judge all these people. They are evil. They don't care about you or me, or your families, or your kids. They just want what they believe is rightfully theirs, which is everything. The Circle is one of those many groups, I'm sure there are a few groups vying for power, who are part of this takeover and working together type of deal. It's like a corporate deal. There'll be several groups vying for power, and they'll just come together and agreed, now's the time to take over. A hostile takeover, as they call it in business, where the winnings will be divvied up and the spoils shared between these entities with blood dripping from the fangs. But I think also, Chris, I was thinking this, there must be interfights because these people are basically insane. They're going to agree today and then tomorrow want to kill each other.
And also with all that ego floating around, and without being rude and dick swinging, you can just we're just left as the chaff out to while they do the battles. And
yes,
I mean, when you think about world wars, they're doing the battles, and where the ones are getting killed, and just moving pawns around the chessboard, aren't they? I mean, and is that what's happening now? Because you think all these countries are doing different things at different times, but all kind of doing the same. You know what I mean? Is the elite groups in each area just saying you will do this and we'll do that and we'll beat you at this and we'll beat you at that, and we've managed to get this kid to jab quicker than you, so we're better than you. Do you know what I mean? Almost like a sadistic competition.
Yeah, but it's the I always go on about the trading places $1 bet.
Yeah, that thing. Exactly.
It could be that kind of thing, couldn't it? Where somebody's having this cheap bet. Look at them ants under a rock. If I drop that rock, how many ants are going to die? Yeah. They're not all going to die.
And none of the people that are doing this are going to die. They're just going to sacrifice whoever they want at whatever time.
Yes,
even people who think they're in the club, we can get rid of them.
And
it's fine.
When you think about Le Circle, and and it's called The Circle, if you like. A lot of these things are obviously about shapes, aren't they? But the circle of life, or the circle,
never ends.
Just never ends. It never ends.
Just an interesting side note, Dom. And there was a Netflix film, I think it's Netflix, Tom Hanks in it, called The Circle. And it's about like a Facebook group, a corrupt, what do they call them? Facebook, Instagram, kind of multimedia, Google kind of thing. I think I watched it. I can't remember if I watched it or not. It didn't strike, but it came out very under the radar to say it's a Tom Hanks vehicle, if you like. But it was about the corruption in one of those. I've
noticed in his latter years, he's making a few more governmenty type things, isn't it? Where
I thought it was a weird one to make as well, but it was about one of those
makes my
Facebook
skin crawl now, Tom Hanks.
one of those Facebook kind of companies. I can't remember what actually happens in it, but it is about dragging people into. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Well, there's not much more to say now. We've come to. I could have gone on for hours about Le Circle. I'm sure Chris could have gone for hours about that. But this episode is really about one individual, Nadhim Zahawi. Is he a crypto Jew? Quite possibly. Maybe linked. He's definitely linked to oil businesses. Yes. Banking. Yes. Intelligence services. I'd say yes. Is he corrupt? Yes. But it depends what you mean by corruption. He's legally corrupt, which means he can go ahead doing it. He's only corrupt against us. He's not corrupt for his friends, is he?
Yeah. And what's interesting, even when you went through the people who were chairmans of this thing, like, who was it, Norman Lamont? There were people, I remember him, and he wasn't massively, he didn't seem like he was massively influential, like Zahawi, but clearly he was more influential than he's showing, which just shows a different system in their world.
Look who he worked for.
That's what I mean. But again, what I mean is he just popped up on TV occasionally, Norman Lamont, and you want
someone his eyebrows.
Looking like some weird squinty-eyed vampire. But you weren't. What I mean is you didn't think of him as having any clout, but he obviously possibly had more clout than Maggie Thatcher. Do you know what I mean? At the time,
I think there were a few of them behind Maggie Thatcher
or John Mains, whoever it was at the time. But they probably have more clout. These people, don't they? Yeah. It's like has Zahawi got more clout than Boris Johnson? Who knows? We don't know. We don't know how their hierarchy works.
No, we don't. It could be he has more say because he's a member of this.
Yeah, exactly. And I've said to you before, Dom, that the upside down world we live in, which is, the people who I told are in charge are not in charge at all, and I think that's pretty obvious. And the people like him more in charge, and then someone behind him is more. You know what I mean? So the guy that we're told is in charge is totally opposite. And I would genuinely believe that, to be honest with you. But I'm hazarding a guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the Le Circle is, if it's Opus Dei, that means it's black nobility, the old Roman, old European money.
Old blood.
Old blood. The ones that you don't know about. You don't know these families. And again, going back to Zahawi, and the Barzani tribe, that might be ancient, going back centuries.
It sounds like an
invading
Arabic,
that country.
Sounds like an Arabic Godfather movie. Yeah. You're talking about.
It does sound like that, yeah. So, have you got any more thoughts on that whole presentation there?
Well, I think that should be. Well, I think we definitely will cover that in a mint sauce, don't you? A little bit more, just a little recap and a little bit more.
Yeah. But I'd like to go into that McGowan thing that you were on about, and I'd like to look at the Opus Dei thing. I mean, there were loads more information on the individuals like Lamont and stuff like that. I just glazed over it. Yeah. One of them, and it wasn't Lamont, it were another one of them, the chairman, was linked to children and kidnappings and stuff like that. And he was I think he was a baron.
I'll reread the Programme to Kill first chapter because he does a big bit about the Dutroux thing. I didn't really know that much about it till I read it in there, to be honest.
Yeah,
but it sounded.
I think Zahawi was working for the man, if you like, the elites in it. Yeah, these people are really shoved in front of camera.
Some of them are walking blind, but he's one he's signed up and paid for, isn't he?
Yes,
because he's making too much money out of it as well.
Yeah, well, he's a surface rat, isn't he? He's a harbour shark, as I said at the beginning. He's willing to feed off the boat, if you like, when they're throwing bits over, as long as he's not down with the plebs.
But what better energy source than getting to, like in wars, what better energy source to get people to do it just for money? I mean, I don't know, you just get that image, don't you? Whoever is running this show, rubbing your hands together, going, we offered him £1 million, he's willing to shaft his entire country. How's that?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
Like you said, that $1 bet, I bet I can get him to do that. If I just offer him this and that and this and that, I bet I can get that country to jab the 12-year-olds if I offer him this and this and this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that how it works? Who knows? We'll never know. Will we know? I don't know.
It seems to be. Yeah. So this brings us to an end of, I suppose, the Sage series of presentations. Although Zahawi is not a member of Sage, I just couldn't leave him out. There was just too much information to leave him out of the loop. Zahawi is one of those people who seems to be willing to follow the mantra and ideologies for the elites. as long as it greases the tracks for him and his financial ambitions. In my view, he's short-sighted. The elites will gladly sacrifice people like Zahawi when required. They don't care about him any more than they care about us. These entities, and I'll call them entities, will have to answer to an higher calling, hopefully, when their time come. But that's all we've got time for in this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Join us next time. Bye.
When I was young, before my